lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead. Oh, with a sizzling colour in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive, massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round number 2 of the AMS Oz GT3 World Challenge Series for 2019. Second season of endurance racing in GT cars this year. We have trekked all the way from the east coast of Australia to the Ardennes forest in Belgium. It is the iconic Spa-Francorchamps playing host to the second round of this 8-round season to finish off our year. My name is Steve De Vries, aka Nether, and as per usual, I've got my trusty sidekick Bagzy along for the ride in Josh Bagzy Bags. Good evening to you, sir.
Hey Nether, how you going? It's good to be here.
It certainly is, and joining us in commentary, I guess you can call he's a little bit of an endurance specialist. He's quite well known in the Reddit community, and he's been here before in GT3 commentary, and that's Michael the Floodman Zalavari. Good evening to you as well, Michael.
Good evening, Nether. Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be back talking some GT racing.
And for both of you gentlemen as well, having come off a massive amount of great commentary work earlier this morning and this afternoon, the very well-run ARW 3 Hours of Suzuka. You're in commentary with Resist and anchored there by none other than the man himself, Stairs, and a fantastic job from all of you involved and for everybody that put on such a great show for that endurance event earlier today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nether. It was cool to get invited on board with that. Yeah, so thanks to Stairs and especially Madbird for pulling everything together, and to yourself as well, Nether, for running race control for the race this morning. It was a well-run race and a well-competed race.
It certainly was a very, very well competed race and a very well-run event overall in general. And a lot of people comment to me that they like the fact I'm one hell of an organiser. So I like to think that I fulfil that race director's role pretty well. But we haven't got a race director when it comes to the AMS Oz series. We do have the men behind the scenes that work very, very hard to keep this series going, the likes of Lewis Wedding and co, and also Brenton Foley, who keeps a record of the points through each and every round that we traverse. So, with that over and done with, we'll take a look at the GT calendar just to see where this series takes us. And as we saw a couple of weeks ago, 1st of September, we had a great turnout. 19 cars contested the opening round at Sydney Motorsport Park, which Lewis Wedding took the line honours. And we find ourselves there, the second event on the calendar of Spa-Francorchamps, the first of the 90-minute races tonight as well. So, as you remember, last season we had the 90-minute races and the 2-hour were the longer ones, and this year, or this season rather, it is the 60 minutes being the shorter ones, the 90 minutes being the longer events, and still a number of great tracks to come. Brands Hatch, Hockenheimring, Ureth, Zandvoort, Fuji and Adelaide, and of course the last two there going to be the day to night transition races, so something a little bit different in AMS Oz for GT3 competition. Driver points as they stand, we've only had the one round, and the only win on the board so far to Lewis Wedding last time out. A little bit of a different point structure for this season compared to previous seasons. 18 points for a race win, whereas last season it was 25, and it'll be 25 points for a race win in the 90-minute race tonight, whereas last time out in last season it would have been 30 points for a longer distance win. Brenton Foley and Lewis Wedding at the top of the point standings there. We'd kind of expect them to be the ones that have traded the titles in GT3 over the last couple of seasons now. The two JP Simshed cars not too far behind. Brennan Ross, who was in that battle toward the end of last season, still in there as well. A good debut from Mitchell Hathaway for HDS Racing as well. And a number of newcomers have made it into the top 10 there as well. And also denoting the Pro and Silver Cup classes, the respective leaders there, Lewis Wedding, the Pro, Mike Coulston, the top-ranked Silver Cup driver. So pretty good start to proceedings last time out, Bagzy, and the battle looks set to continue here tonight. And for some reason, Bagzy is talking, but his mic is not relaying the information through to us. But we'll come back to his thoughts in just a few moments if he can get himself sorted. But one thing, we will come back to the points in a few seconds' time, but I will pick up something for you, Michael, and this is your domain. Spa-Francorchamps, the 7-kilometre iconic circuit in Belgium. It's predominantly a right-hand turning circuit because it is a clockwise track. 90 minutes, the expected duration, about 38 to 40 odd laps. It is a track that is synonymous with endurance racing. It's almost sacrilege if you don't see this on any endurance calendar around the world, Michael.
Yeah, exactly, and not just endurance racing, in motorsport in general. Of course, it's one of the iconic European rounds for the Formula One as well. This track, it's got a very interesting sort of nature about it. A lot of the time, in a lot of endurance racing, it's run as a sort of a low downforce circuit. You've got the long Kemmel straights and the run from Stavlo through to the bus stop, which is all pretty well flat out. So a lot of the time, a lot of teams will take a lot of downforce off the car and try and run them as slippery as possible. But the problem with that is a lot of the corners that you do encounter, the Eau Rouge, even in Le Com and Pouon, that infield left-hander that stretches the whole way through the middle of Sector 2 there, they're all very high downforce corners. So you end up having to strike this tedious balance between being fast on the straights to make lap time there versus the aerodynamic efficiency where you're loaded up through all these corners. So it's a very, very difficult track in that respect, and does always produce some interesting results. And of course, being nestled away in the Ardennes forest, it comes with its own challenges and difficulties as well with that.
It certainly does. And one thing you just mentioned there was the high-speed nature of some of these corners, the iconic corners, Eau Rouge, Raidillon, Pouon, Blanchimont. They're the ones that we're all going to be looking out for. And that's one of the points that I have on the what to watch for on the graphic on screen at the moment. The car handling at high speed, striking that balance between the low downforce and the corners that are going to need the downforce. How are the drivers going to handle a slidey car? How are they going to attack some of these high-speed corners? Where is that balance of grip versus speed going to come from? The other items to note there, the carnage zone, turn 1, lap 1. We're going to be keeping our eyes on that very, very closely. We do expect that there might be a little bit of push and shove, as there is in most races that take place here with a rolling start or even with a standing start. We've seen it plenty of times in Formula One, and it wouldn't be surprising to see it happen again tonight if a number of cars make contact going into the La Source hairpin to begin this race. And of course, you struck another chord before as well there, Michael. The low downforce nature, the long nature of some of these sections, all the way out of Stavelot, all the way up to the bus stop chicane through Blanchimont, and also the big drag down the Kemmel Straight toward Les Combes. There is plenty of opportunities for slipstreaming here. It's very, very powerful. You've got a long bit of road in many places to get that job done. So slipstreaming and timing your run will be very, very important here.
Yeah, exactly. And especially up the Kemmel Straight. What a lot of people don't realize is Kemmel Straight, it's still quite significantly uphill through that section. So you get a lot of use out of the toe up there. So especially in the early laps when the field's bunched up, or if we have a safety car intervention, the toe up the Kemmel Straight will be definitely something that a lot of the guys a little further back will be making a lot of use of. And yeah, it's one of those things. I like to liken Spa-Francorchamps as a high downforce circuit connected by these massively long straights, which makes it a low downforce circuit. It's one of those. It's on that really, really tight tipping point, and it'll be interesting to see who chooses what direction to go with the setups. Because of course, a car which might have a higher downforce might be easier to drive, but on the other hand, you are sacrificing that top end speed and that potential to maybe lose a position on track because of that.
Absolutely. Bagzy, have we got you back?
Hello, I am here. Do we have me?
Yes, you certainly do. So What
Excellent.
we'll do is we will return to the driver's points, because that's one thing that I did want to grab you for a little bit earlier when you had your trouble there. But the drivers' championship, look, with only one race down, I guess we really can't read too much into the point standings, although we do know that the last round was very, very hotly contested and setting up nicely for a very, very good remainder of the season.
Yeah, and something we had was a lot of finishes, which was not exactly entirely expected because last GT3 season was plagued by potential disconnects and other things like that. We're hoping to see tonight a race similar to what we had in the ARW 3 hour with only one retirement with 3 minutes to go, because more cars on track means more potential action for us to commentate and send out to everyone.
It certainly does. And we've just ticked over the last of the practice time, and we're about to go into the qualifying session. So here we are, and already Brenton Foley, head of the queue. Behind him, looks like that is potentially it's either Josh Ben or it's Rhodey. Just trying to work out which one of them it is, and it looks like that's Josh Ben behind. So already the PBF cars, the 4 Dodge Vipers that are in this field, 2 of which are already out onto the circuit as soon as the green light is shown at the Exeter pit lane.
Someone's eager to get going, aren't they?
They certainly
so
are.
while we're in this qualifying session, we will make reference to the 3 sector markers on this track. For Spa-Francorchamps, it's basically split into 2 very fast sectors and 1 with all the corners. So sector 1 runs from the start-finish line through La Source all the way down through Eau Rouge and Radillon and almost the full length of the Kemmel Straight, just before the braking zone to Le Combe, where the cars have just passed through now. Then sector 2 is through Le Combe, through the Bruxelles hairpin, through No Name into Pouon, and then the Campus S's just to where the entry of Stavelot is. And then sector 3 is that long stretch from Stavelot all the way through Blanchemont into the bus stop and towards the end of the lap. So in practice, we were seeing sector times of, I think, about 40-ish seconds for sector 1, just over a minute for sector 2, and then another 35 to 40 seconds for sector 3, if my memory is correct.
Sounds about right. We were getting some lap times practice during the week that were into the 2:16s. In actual fact, I believe it or not, it was Greg Turra in his Porsche, his 991, that had set that particular benchmark when I was checking it out. We haven't gotten close to that mark in the practice session just gone. We were in the 2:18s and 2:19s at the low end, and the field was actually quite well spread in terms of the lap time. So it'd be interesting to see where the balance of power lies with the lap time once this qualifying session is over and done with, because this man on screen is a bit of a qualifying specialist. He likes to put it, he'll be in the top couple of positions quite early and tends to stay there. He's going to have to fend off the challenge from Lewis Wedding, who is the man that has a target on his back. But seeing as he's the first man out on track, Bagzy, I'm going to give you the honours, and we can follow Brenton Foley for a lap of this Spa-Francorchamps circuit.
As he comes towards the first corner now, and through the first corner, nice and tidy on the apex there, a little bit of a wiggle, but it's going quite well. Now the essentially flat out run all the way down to the third, well, not the third corner because it's got Eau Rouge and Radillon here, but it's a basically long blast at almost full throttle. And this is, as we have seen in the F1, just slipstream galore during the race. At the moment, you want to try to not give anyone else a tow, unless it's your teammate, who he does have behind him from the looks of it. My angle's cut away from that. It's keeping it quite tight. Sorry, my game's just crashed, so I'm going to have to let you take back over.
Well, he's just come through the Lake Com chicane and now swinging down to the hairpin. So it is keeping it quite tidy and quite actually well in check at the moment, Brenton Foley, as he navigates the right-hander at the hairpin. Down this short little chute to the one that Michael referred to as, we call it No Name, because it doesn't have a name. Then using as much of the exit curve as he dares, hard on the gas down to Pouon. There's double apexing left-hander, seems to go on and on and on forever. You take the apex on the left, run it out to the right, grab the second apex again, and then run it back out to the right again, and then you've got to move the car all the way over to the left to tackle the Campus S. Similar construction and layout to the Senna S at Interlagos, just not as steep. It's actually relatively flat. Now through Stavlo, and now hard on the power. He's done in 1 minute 38.5 to the second timing intermediate, Brenton Foley's first sector split, as we look on our live timing, was a 35.9. That's already been immediately surpassed by Devonish at 35.8, and a 102.6 in the middle sector. So they used a little bit too much curb there on the exit of Blanchimont, but that's okay. And one of the hardest braking points on the circuit now, the final chicane, pits off to the right-hand side just there. They will have to stop twice in this race. And then out of the final chicane, and the benchmark is laid down at a 2:18.233. Time's coming in behind. Looks like Josh Ben may have had a track violation somewhere, because he hasn't, actually in sector 1, he hasn't registered a time. Times from Lime Mitch and Noah Tara coming in. Actually some pretty respectable early laps around the 2:18, 2:19, 2:20 mark.
Keep an eye on Will Devonish. He's purple in sector 1 and in sector 2 as he comes towards the bus stop chicane. Lost where he is. He's just about to cross the line, actually.
Fractionally off Foley. So his first sector was very, very good. His middle sector was very, very good, purple at that time, and just pipped by Foley in the final sector. So 25 thousandths of a second, the difference there. Very, very close. Brenton Foley's now gone purple in sector 1 with 35.6, so already stepping up the pace on his second lap. It was Devonish has a big moment over the top of Radion, and there's a rear wing now missing from the number 15 car, so he's bailed. And he did have his teammate behind in Ozrob as well. So those two are running line astern, as they were for a fair bit of the back end of the race at Sydney Motorsport Park. Will having to fight his way through the field, and ended up 4th in that race.
Oh, we've got a new best time. Greg Tara jumps to the top of the timesheets with a 2:17.6, so 6/10 of a second better than Foley, who's still in that middle, in just about to break that sector 2 timing mark. So we'll get a read on how he's going this lap.
Well, it's actually pretty poor sector 2 time as well. It's a 102.0 compared to Tara's 101.7, but the flip side of that is Tara's first sector was a 35.9 to compared to Foley's 35.6. So when you factor all that in, this is actually pretty tight. Different strengths and weaknesses of some of these cars, different power games versus different lateral loads and cornering grip. Everybody's got to contend with something a little bit different, but at the end of the day, all the cars balance out pretty darn well. But Tara currently provisionally on the front row, and Foley now says, I'll raise your game by half a second here, and goes very, very close to a 2:16.
Yeah, and it was all in that last sector that he gained all that time back. So this is the sort of thing I was talking about at the very beginning. You probably, Tara, better in sector 2 where all the corners are, means he's got a little bit more downforce on the car, whereas Foley, better in sectors 1 and 3 where it's all straight line or full throttle, he's probably got a little less aero on the car. So again, it's just finding that balance, and at the moment it looks like Foley's got the better balance for an outright lap time.
Mike Coulston currently on screen. He's the leader in the Silver Cup part of the drivers' points, so he's currently 9th overall with 9 points, and as I said, the leader in Silver Cup. Directly behind him, Turmo and Dwayne Davies, and Ben Rhodes and Glenn Miles, the only other Silver Cup drivers in the competition. Of course, the only man out of that group of 5 yet to score any points this season is Glenn Miles. He did not finish the Sydney Motorsport Park race. There was actually 3 retirements all up in that race. It was Miles, Williams and Thomas Paul, and actually Greg Tara got himself disqualified in that particular race as well. So being a good bounce back for Greg Tara, currently being provisionally on the front row. But it's interesting to see where Mike Coulston can put this Honda NSX on his first real flying lap. He's going to be looking probably around where Turmo is right now, so that's towards P7. Although the lap times weren't really reflecting that, and he ends up P11 with his opening salvo. And
just out of curiosity, sorry, has it been changed so that now you have unlimited laps in qualifying? Because I believe we were limited to 10 last time out at Eastern Creek.
I believe that it has been left up to 10. I haven't seen any further changes, but then again, we have had a couple of little server dramas just this evening, and Will Devonish is hosting the server very gratefully for us, with Lewis having a couple of dramas. So it wouldn't be surprising if there is an unlimited number of laps at the moment.
Speaking of Will Devonish, he's only a 10th off the fastest time at the moment.
Yeah, he's tracking quite nicely at the moment for this particular lap. 35.7 in the middle, in the first sector, so only a 10th off the provisional best. He's swinging left through No Name at the moment, so probably still about 30 seconds away from getting a real read as to where he is relative to everybody else. But Bagzy and I, we had a little bit of conjecture last round as to who really was the driver of the day. Will Devonish was my pick, Lewis Wedding was Bagsy's pick. Devonish did do a great job to fight his way through the field, and Lewis really did pick his moments really, really well when it came to continuing on and winning that race 2 weeks ago. But Devonish will get a read on this time in just a few seconds. Had a little bit of a moment into the first part of Stavilo and actually drops about a half a second worth of time there, so I don't think he's probably going to recover that very well down this straight. It'd take a mighty effort to recover a half a second. Steve Bolger's now popped up into third place, just very, very briefly as well.
Yeah, that Viper seems really good in the twisty sections, which is not something that you'd usually say about a Viper, but, you know, there we have it. The Viper is beating the Porsche in the twisty bits, but not in the straights. Go figure.
Well, this comes back to what Michael was saying a little bit earlier about the different aero balance that some of these cars are going to need. Has Foley gone from maybe sacrificed a little bit of straight line speed to go with a bit more of a setup that'll give him that edge in some of those corners, as we've now seen Lewis Wedding's opening salvo puts him up into P3 as he wrestles the car up and over the top of Radion and onto the Kemmel straight.
Very busy Kemmel Straight. Sorry, Michael. It's very busy Kemmel Straight at the moment. We've got 6 cars on it currently, and they're all sort of starting to bunch up towards the end there. So Wedding's lap, even though he just set a purple first sector, might be affected. Speaking of purple sectors, Greg Tara set a purple middle sector, a 101.7. So his time is 6/10 off of Brenton Foley still, but he's coming through the bus stop now.
Tara's
yeah, that was
low,
what I was about to. That was what I was about to bring everyone's attention to. He is still half a second off, but the Porsche's looking very, very solid in that middle sector with all the corners. He ends up improving that time to a 2:17.3 as we've got 3.5 minutes left in the session.
Yeah, Tara's problems at the moment, though, stem from Sector 1, so I'm not sure where he's having the trouble in Sector 1, but compared to Lewis Wedding, who's gone purple Sector 1 with a 35.549, Tara's first sector was a 35.938, so there's at least another 0.4 of a second in that Porsche if Tara can hook it up and get the job done in Sector 1. He'd be very mighty. As I said earlier, he was in practice during the week, he was into the 2:16s, much like Lewis Wedding's tracking towards it at the moment.
Wedding's 4/10 up, but he's got 4 cars in front of him. There's a massive amount of traffic he's caught up to. He's second up with his personal best, but he's probably going to lose all 4/10 coming down through here.
Got a little bit of a nice toe there from Glenn Miles, but then the next man in the queue is Lime Mitch in the guest Ferrari, and then just ahead of Lime Mitch is Brendan Ross, and these guys will all be on hot laps, so he did get a bit of a toe from Glenn Miles. I'm not sure if that's going to help or hinder the situation, but he's going to get another cracker. In actual fact, Lime Mitch has gotten out of the way very smartly, realising Lewis is on the quick lap.
That's very heads up from Lime Mitch there.
Yeah, they've done very well to avoid that there. What does he do? He goes to the top, mid-16, so in actual fact, he got the benefit of the toe from Glenn Miles. It actually gave him a little bit extra time, so that's a very, very smart lap from Lewis Wedding. Runs deep at the final corner, so he's now not going to get another lap in, so he's really got to sit and wait and see what the likes of this man can produce, Brenton Foley.
Something I just want to bring a little bit of attention to. So I was talking about Foley being good in Sector 1 and 3 and not so good in Sector 2, whereas Torres is the other situation. Lewis Wedding on that lap, purple in every single sector. So that car is hooked up on the fast bits and on the curvy bits. So that's very, very positive for that Nissan car.
Certainly is. What a great lap indeed it was. And he does tend to leave his run a little bit late sometimes, Lewis, but he's left a bit of time on the clock for some of these other drivers to really have a go at him. So Foley's one, Tara's another. Will Devonish is in the pits as well, so he's not going anywhere. He won't get another crack at it. Steve Bolger is very smartly in P5 at the moment. And then we look a bit further down the field. Boak and Ozrob both out there. Termo's in 8th place at the moment. He's not going to get another run. Lime Mitch and Josh Ben round out the 10 at the moment. Foley will get another lap here.
Yeah, he's going to get another lap. This one isn't going to be close, unfortunately, but you have one more shot. It looks like we've got probably the only people, we've got a minute left, so the only people who are really going to make it around to the line are probably Brendan Ross, Ozrob, and I believe
Tara's coming around.
Miles. He might not make it.
Tara's coming around. He'll get one last shot at this. He's actually on an outlap right now in the 22. Actually, in fact, he's gone deep at the bus stop chicane as well, so slightly compromises himself in preparation for this lap. We look a bit further down the field. Who we got coming around Blanchimont now? We've got the 13th place car of Brendan Ross, who you just alluded to there, Bagzy. So he will get another lap. 20 seconds on the clock, so he'll get close to it. No one else. That'll be it. So Brendan Ross will get to start his lap. Everybody else behind him is going to basically finish what they're on. So the next man across the line is Ozrob.
Close,
no, he's
not
too far back.
it.
Too far back. So whatever he's on right now. What's he done? He's done 36.0 to the first sector, a 102.4 in the middle. There's not a stellar lap.
I don't think he's going to go up, but maybe one position.
Maybe he might be enough to sneak ahead of Josh Ben if he can hook this last bit up. In actual fact, he grabs two places. So he got Ben and Boak. So good last run for Ozrob there. Steve Bolger behind was 5th on the road. Improves his time, but still 0.4 of a second adrift of Will Devonish. Now we go back to 10th place man Lime Mitch. In actual fact, he was, well, it says here he was on an outlap, but it did get out of the way, so I think maybe he must have had some sort of a track violation on this lap. So he's not going to go any further up or down, or actually further up the order. He still might go down a little bit.
Coulson's on a decent lap time.
Yeah, here he is now coming into the bus stop chicane.
We need a good final sector here, though.
His target, as we said before, is Termo, who's his main rival at the moment in Silver Cup. That's a little bit further ahead of him. And he goes P11, so improves, good improvement actually, nearly 6 3/4 of a second, but not enough to go any further up the order. Now, all attention turns to this man.
Who is this man? Because I was going to bring your attention. I was going to skip Foley because he's not broken the 102 middle sector.
And he's had a big
going to go look at Tara. He was only a tenth away from the best first sector time, which I was saying was a problem area for him. He's got a 101.4 in the middle sector, so he's looking very, very good coming into the bus stop chicane now on his final flying lap. Gets the front of that.
Oh, he's gone deep. He's gone deep. Oh, has he compromised himself there? Because as you're saying, Floody, he was very close on sector 1. His sector 2 time was very good compared to Lewis Wedding. He has gone deep. He's gone P2. He found time, but going deep, I think, into the bus stop chicane probably cost him a pole position there. But still, nonetheless, he does a 2:16, and he drops Brenton Foley down to row 2.
Yeah, very, very, very fine margins in the end. It was only 0.2, but that was a half a second improvement, and a lot of that was in sector 1. So that's a pretty impressive run from Tara there. But again, it is Lewis Wedding taking pole position for the second round of the AMS GT3 Season 2.
It certainly is. Good last run by a number of drivers there, finding some improvement over the course of the last couple of minutes. They're all chasing Lewis Wedding. He set that time with about 2.5 minutes to go, and it was basically a sit and wait, Bagzy, to see what times came in. Tara nearly did the job and just fell a little bit short. Just that last little mistake going into the final chicane probably may or may not have cost him a pole position, but nonetheless, the front row is great for Greg Tara.
He'll be really happy with that, but yeah, that last corner, basically, he was up in all the other sectors, but 4 tenths down in the final sector, and he was only 2.5 tenths behind, so that's definitely what did it, unfortunately, but he's definitely looking racy. We'll see if he has the race pace to stick with Lewis Wedding, because we saw it was close in qualifying last time out, but Wedding sort of just went along doing his thing and was unopposed. And good job from Termo again, lead Silver Cup car, and Lime Mitch in the guest car ahead of one pro and the rest of the Silver Cup.
Yeah, he's done very well there, has Termo, to be the lead runner in Silver Cup inside the top 10 as well. So 9th place for the only Chevy Camaro in the field. Just coming back to Greg Tara as well, I got a funny feeling that he probably has a little bit of a bone to pick with Lewis Wedding after what we last round, or not last round, last season, where he basically had his pocket picked by Lewis Wedding at Suzuka in the last couple of corners of that race as well. It was shaping up to be a grandstand finish, and we got it in that race. But he finished on the second step of the rostrum, and I'm sure he'd like to go one better. And looking forward to seeing the battle unfold between two very, very quick drivers around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in about 10 minutes, getting underway in about 10 minutes' time. A couple of other notable mentions in the field there as well. Noah Tara's done quite well. He's actually outpaced Brendan Ross, believe it or not, in the Porsche 911. So Brendan Ross, one of the last year's title protagonists going into the final race, finds himself P13, would you believe, in that Ford GT, the older spec Maytech Ford GT, and not a place you would expect to see him on the standings. Josh Benz had a very, very good run as well. He's up into P8, so he's in the PBF Team Trackstar Dodge Viper. So 3 out of the 4 PBF Vipers inside the top 10. The other one, Rody, effectively the academy driver, is down in P15, as we like to call him. He likes to think he's in the academy driver, so we give him that honour. But he's still got a very, very big mountain to climb, has Benny Rhodes. But Steve Bolger's taking that Audi R8 LMS to some places that it probably shouldn't be going. He's up into P5. He was actually in P3 for a good chunk of that final stanza in qualifying, only to be surpassed by a couple of late laps. And but still, great job in the Gravel Rash Racing number 87.
Yeah, that lap from Bolger kind of flew under the radar while we were watching Foley and Toro trade times before Lewis Wedding got involved. He actually put that lap in pretty early in the session, and yeah, it was only when the big boys started setting those hero laps at the end that he got overrun. He's actually one of only 5 cars to actually make it into the 17s. So he set a 17.6, and then the next car behind him, Ozrob, in the JP Sim Shed Porsche 911 was down in an 18.4. So that's a pretty significant difference there. So Bolger, he's on the bridge between the top echelon and then the next group. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes for this race session.
It sure will. And speaking of race sessions, it's the warm-up session at the moment, but as per usual, the driver's briefing is just being conducted at the moment by Lewis Wedding prior to the start of this race. I'm sure he'll be talking about something similar that we have spoken about in the 3-hour briefing earlier today, as well as some of the other sessions that we've had along the way. And that will be the likes of running wide at some of these corners, such as Blanchimont. If you're running in there side by side, you go all 4 wheels over the outside of the track. When you're battling with somebody, you effectively cede position and you relinquish all rights to continuing on with that battle. You basically got to give it up and come back into line and then have another crack somewhere along the line at getting your position back. So that'll be all about just making sure that there's no funny business and no unsafe rejoins, and that effectively, because you've left the track limits, you effectively lose out. He'll also be mentioning about one of our hotspots, I can imagine, which will be turn number 1 on lap 1, given it's a field of 17 cars, so 2 cars less than what we had at the first round Sydney Motorsport Park. Still a sizable field, and the start will no doubt be very, very hotly contested, and if someone gets their braking all wrong or makes a bit of a silly move into turn 1, it could be game over for a number of drivers, and he'll be probably putting that out just to say to everybody, just take a bit of time, make sure we can all get through turn 1 without an issue. And also there'll be the reminder about there'll be no one's to put the gas down fully until the leader crosses the start-finish line. A little bit different here in AMS Oz with the endurance rolling starts. They have to wait. The leader has to wait until the start-finish line before putting the power down. Even if the clock counter has started and the green flag has been shown, that is the rule. Whereas the traditional endurance racing, such as the one we had earlier today, as soon as the green flag is shown, you can go.
Just another thing I think is worth touching on, as seeing as we're talking GT3 endurance at Spa-Francorchamps, what that means is we're actually using the full GT Endurance pit lane. So it's the pit lane that runs alongside the main straight and alongside the run into Eau Rouge. So you only exit the pits at the top of Radeon. So staying out of the pits under green flag conditions is going to be an absolute premium, because the last thing you want is to be stuck on that run up to Eau Rouge and Radeon in the pit lane, watching guys whiz past you at full speed. So if anyone gets a drive through, or if they have to make a stop under green flag conditions while others are stopping under yellows or safety cars, that could be something that may shape the way that this race turns out later on.
Very, very possible. And we will soon see, I guess, in probably about 4 minutes' time, when the grid starts to form up, how those sorts of strategies are going to play out. We don't expect that the drivers will be starting to stop until around about the half-hour mark. It is going to be a two-stop race. Depending on how some of these drivers can stretch out that first stint as well, will really set up all the strategies for the back end of the race, whether it be a short fill, or whether, we've seen it before, some drivers may not elect to take tyres in the last stint, just depending on how much they've elected to, or how much camber they've elected to put on their tyres, how much they've elected to abuse their tyres. The pit stop strategy is certainly going to be an interesting one, Bagzy.
Yeah, are we actually using the whole GT3 pit lane?
Don't count me on that. I got in the real world, I think we do, but in this one, I think I've been seeing them exit for qualifying out of the Formula One pit lane, and given the size of the field, I think that's the one we're going to be using. But I think Floody might have got a little overexcited there for a minute.
I was watching Lime Mitch in the warm up, and he did trundle up the GT pit lane as well. So that one's on me. I'll take that. But still, though, don't want to be in the pits. It's endurance racing.
I mean, you can use it. You can use it if you really want to, but it probably won't be considered the best idea.
Yeah.
No, maybe not.
just for the viewers who have not seen this before, just to highlight what we're talking about here. This is the pit lane here. You can actually see one of the PBF cars has just exited out of the Formula One pits just a few seconds ago. But just to the left-hand side of the concrete wall here on the run down to turn 1, you can see there's the PBF Team Trackstar car coming out of the normal pit lane. This is the endurance pit lane here that Michael's referring to, and it goes all the way. You can see the extra pits there, and then all the way up the hill through Eau Rouge, and then exiting up at Radeon. That is the longer pit lane, the endurance format, where we do have a lot more cars on the circuit. And for this round, it appears, just judging by where the cars are coming out, that it is the Formula One style pit lane. I don't believe the game actually has the garages on the other side. The course, I think, is only capable of holding about 30 cars maximum, which is more than enough to fit into the normal Formula One style pit lane. So
yeah, it's not quite blank pan 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps style, where you've got 70 odd entrants and you're doing restarts in the middle of the night in pouring rain after an hour-long yellow flag. Just trying to feel your way out to the source. So not quite that hardcore here at AMS Oz. Not yet.
Not yet, anyway. Now, if I was one of these drivers, I'd be making sure I've got my pit entry and pit exit procedure down pat right before this start. So it'll be interesting to see how many drivers just go out there and do laps, and how many of them elect to actually try and do a little trundle through the pit lane to see how it is getting their cars through some of these tight sections, as Brenton Foley on cue is about to demonstrate for us. You can see it's a very, very tight concrete wall lined pit lane here. There's the line they've got to make sure they get their speed down to before they enter the pit lane. You have seen quite a number of penalties handed out over the seasons for pit lane speeding infringements, and a number of drivers are in doing a mock pit stop, changing tyres, putting fuel in, just to see how long their time in the pits is going to take. Lime Mitch lights it up on the way out of the lane, and there he is, just taking to the exit of the course, and the countdown timer is about to expire. So in just a few moments' time, the grid is about to get set for 90 minutes around this iconic Belgian circuit.
Oof. I hope Mitch doesn't do that in the race. He's just spun it off at Eau Rouge, maybe on purpose. But yeah, that'll be a hot spot as well. Look for some of the guys maybe with a lower downforce setup to maybe get a little loose in the rear as they go over the top of the crest to Eau Rouge. One thing I will quickly mention before we get started, before the grid all gets set up, is that the downforce and the drag that you apply to your car also has an effect on your fuel mileage and your tire wear. So there's also that trade-off there of running lower drag means you can save a bit more fuel with these long straights, and you might use a little bit more tire in the squiggly stuff. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on that one for everyone at home, and I'll get my notepad and start scribbling down some notes.
Well, we're not too far away from a race start here. Just waiting on the last couple of drivers to get themselves into the server. Typically Lewis Wedding's one of the ones that likes to leave it right until the very last minute.
It's very unnecessary, but they continue to do it for some reason.
It's almost like mind games, isn't it, Bagzy? They're just psyching people out.
I mean, it's mind games with the potential to have to start from the pit lane, which seems like you're just psyching yourself out there, but, you know, I'm not the one driving.
No, certainly not. 17 cars on the grid. Great turnout again. Bagsy's going to take us through this field.
All right, pole position yet again. Lewis Wedding is Nissan GTR, the best car on the grid, obviously. Followed by the worst car on the grid, the Porsche 911 for Greg Taro. It appears that Michael disagrees with me.
These two are about to get. These two will get their boxing gloves on later in the commentary box.
This will be a story for later in the race. Brendan Foley, PBF team Vodafone in that Viper. He's got that Viper right up at the pointy end of the grid for PBF. PBF looking pretty good with 2 cars in the top 8. 4th place is Will Devonish, but will be race engineering in the Porsche 997. So we've got Porsche 991 and 997s on the grid today. Bolger in the first Audi R8 for Gravel Rash Racing. Another Porsche, Osrob, JP Simshed. The other PBF car, Phil Boak, is in 7th place. Josh Ben, he has qualified in 8th for PBF Team Trackstar, which is the PBF satellite team, I believe. Termo for Jack Daniels Racing in that Chevy there. Lime Mitch in the first Ferrari guest team car. Mike Coulston for Flat Spot Racing in the Acura NSX. Noah Tara with an excellent qualifying today. He is also in the Porsche 991. Brendan Ross, 13th place for FCR in the Ford GT. Coops in the other NSX is in 14th. Brody, PBF Academy as well, 15th place. He's done pretty well to get himself up there. It's better qualifying in terms of percentage away from the front runner compared to last week. Brian Walsh in the Playboy Racing Ferrari, and bringing up the rear is the other Playboy Racing Ferrari of Glenn Miles. So block out of the back row, Playboy Racing. They'll be only can go up from here.
Yeah, the Playboy Racing cars are not doing too badly considering that they're still, you know, I guess they're not new to sim racing, but not as akin to it as a lot of these other drivers up the front. So they're slowly getting better and just slowly working on things. Be interesting to see how they go battling Rhodey toward the back of us as well. If they could get 1 or 2 cars ahead of Rhodey by the end of the race, I'm sure they'll be very, very happy with that performance.
Not the best start for Brian Walsh, going wide through Pouon on the formation lap. And it looks like Brody's actually also done the similar thing, so he's just retaking his position. We've actually still got quite a while after going. We only just made it through the grid last time out at Eastern Creek, but because Spa's so long and safety car's so slow, we'd actually could probably go through it again by the time we get to the start finish line.
True. Michael?
I was just about to say, it's good to see Brian Walsh on the grid. He's having some commitments with family members just pop up recently due to some health-related problems. So it's good to see him out and competing here, GT3 Challenge tonight. So it's good to have you on the grid, Walsh.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'll echo those sentiments, and good to have him in TCR as well on Monday night just gone as well. Great to have, I guess, a mini alliance between the Outworld Racing team and the Playboy Racing team, Ford Bros, sticking together, and they're slowly learning and coming along, but having balls of fun out there as well. So they're out there for a bit of fun, and great to see the two mates out there supporting each other through times of need as well. Well, this safety car is about to peel off in about 20 seconds time or so. We've just rounded Blanchimont and heading up to the final chicane, the bus stop chicane. Safety car lights will go out in just a few seconds time, and we will start the countdown timer for this race. Side by side, championship rolling start. Who's going to get the better of it? The trouble is going to be just making sure that everybody can get around this final corner and get onto the straight. And that's what Lewis is doing. He's just backing the pack up just to make sure that the last couple of cars can get onto the grid, which is Lewis Wedding. And the countdown timer will start in just a few seconds time, but we know he can't go until they get to the control line, which is rapidly approaching, and that means now. Off we go for 90 minutes. Oh, there's already contact in the back. That's Phil Boak. He's got a bit of a hip and shoulder from somebody, and a bit of a poor start from Greg Turrup. But Foley lighting it up on the outside of the first corner as well. But Lewis Wedding has the whole shot. Looks like it's been relatively uneventful through the back of the field, although there's already a move on trying to be made here. Termo's challenging the back of Ozrob for P7, so Ozrob's had a little bit of a tardy start as well. Oh, gone wide and gone clouted the barrier at the top of Radion, and having to take the evasive action was Lime Mitch. So that all started from Ozrob's poor start, but it looks like he might have gotten away with minimal damage, but that is a very, very scary moment for the JP Simshed driver.
Lime Mitch has been kissed on the proverbial by fairies there. He managed to dodge that incredibly well. Some excellent reaction time there from Lime Mitch.
Here's the replay.
We've got Noah Tara in the wall.
Oh, here's the replay again. We're having a look at this start to see what happened to Ozrob, but he actually got sandwiched 3 wide on the. It was on the inside between Bolger and Termo, and there was plenty of hip and shouldering going on. Phil Boak got a bit of a hip and shoulder, and it looks like maybe one of the Noah Tara may have got a bit of thing as well. But Ozrob just went sailing straight on, just a glancing blow on the wall there. And if we try and pick up Noah Tara, what happened to him? He was on Termo's outside as they ran down to the Laycom chicane. Looks like Josh Ben had a bit of an issue there, and they went nearly three wide at one point. Noah Tara turned in on Phil Boak, unsighted, and just a little bit of glancing contact. So just a little bit of tardiness at the start there from all the drivers. Thankfully, everybody's still running, but we did expect there'd be a little bit of chaos, but not that corner. Who was that spinning out in the background? Is that Rhodey? Yeah,
Probably.
It is. Yeah, and we're right.
He's retired.
He's retired straight away. So not a good start for Benny Rhodes there. Oh, Phil Boak's trying to sandwich his way between a Ferrari and a Porsche on the run out of Stavelot up to Blanchimont. That was, wow, I don't know what to say, but that was very, very, very dangerous there. Very lucky that he backed out of it at the right moment. Glenn Miles actually gave him a little bit of space, but that was nearly an aeroplane crash, as you would call it, Bagzy.
Yeah, it certainly was. Lime Mitch also has been in amongst it on the first lap. He hasn't gained or lost any positions, but he's gone up and down about 3 or 4 positions. So he's come out of it with a fair bit of damage too on the left-hand side of that Ferrari. It's quite dented from an incident with Coops, I believe, somewhere in the second sector, but he's come out fine.
I'm just going to bring you
ninth
back
place.
to the front because Lewis Wedding is under heavy fire from Brenton Foley as they head down towards the com. Foley just having a little bit of a look on the inside as they go down the Kemmel Straight, but Wedding with that Nismo engine has enough power to hold him off. But this battle at the front, it's very, very tight, and they've sort of left the likes of Devonish and Greg Turra a little further back already.
Yeah, a bit of a
Turra
tardy.
didn't have a very good start at all, has he? He's dropped 2 positions, and both of them were before the end of the Kemmel Straight. So, I'm not sure if he's just a lot harder on fuel at the moment than the people around him, or if he's just not quite got that race pace and that feel for the car on full fuel.
Might take a little bit of time to settle in. Tara just didn't get going at the start. Foley was already managed to pass him before they got to turn 1, so that was where the first of it went, and then he lost out on the drag race up to Eau Rouge and Radion before.
Oh geez, it's all
there as
kicking
well.
off back. Brian Walsh, Noah Tara, Phil Boak, Ozrob all together coming out of No Name down towards Pool, and that's getting very close and very assorted down there.
Yeah, and Coops
it's
is
a
just a
bit
bit
of
further away, and Phil Boak's all getting really racy now. He knows he's got the pace in this car, but he's being held up by Noah Tara. He's doing a fine job just sticking to his lines at the moment, and then Ozrob's tucked in behind here as well. Oh, there's no room there, Phil. I don't know what you were thinking trying to go down the inside, but there, Toa covered.
Noah Tara is defending quite strongly, let's put it that way.
And Coops is just ahead of them as well, so this is about to become a 5-car train very, very quickly. I think they're dropping Brian Walsh at the moment, but there's going to be fireworks.
It could become an aeroplane crash very soon because Boak's got to run too.
Whack, 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 whack. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here they come. Down to the bus stop chicane. Where are they all going to go? Tara's going to have a bit of a look to the inside. Nope. He's going to stay in behind. Just avoiding the back there is Phil Boak. Oh, no, there's more. There's a 3 wide. What on earth is going on there at the bus stop chicane? Phil Boak's the one that's lost out of that. Ozrob just says, thank you very much. You got shuffled wide. I'll have that 13th place position. And Phil Boak says, well, no, you don't.
Oh, Noah Tara's gone for it there.
We'll dive from Noah Tara on Coops. And actual fact, should have the drive out of the final corner, but on the cutback, Coops manages to hang on to 11th place. So you're right, Bagzy. This was about to kick off, and it has indeed kicked off. Coops, in his debut in GT3 competition, all very squirrely up and over the top. Boak pulls out of the slipstream and goes to the outside of Ozrob there. Then got boxed in by Tara, who now wants to go to the inside of Coops and is going to have position for Lecom. Through goes Ozrob, through goes Boak. They all manage somehow to get ahead before Lecom. And now Ozrob's having a little bit of a sneaky look at the inside of at the top of the hill there.
Off top of Lecom. So Coops lost 3 positions on the Camel Straight there. Just 1, 2, 3. They all just filed past him like it wasn't even, like it was just an obstacle.
That was white knuckle right there. Imagine if you're Phil Boak, you've got cars on your left and your right, you're getting boxed in. Oh, Boak's gone wide and No Name there as well. It's all happening there as there's a bit of smoke in the background. I think that was Brian Walsh having a bit of a lock-up, but they're all sort of splitting apart a little bit. Some people are going a bit wide and poor, and we're going to have potentially see some track violation drive-through penalties a bit later on this race. You've got 90 minutes and only 5 track cuts.
Yeah, this is as you said, Bagzy, a white knuckle ride at the moment for these guys, and Noah's
Mike Colston just on the exit of Stavlo. He's just had a spin between right where the sector 2 marker is. So just it seemed like a little harmless spin, but he's definitely lost a lot of time to line Mitch there.
Yeah, so he was.
He's got damage because he's gone very wide.
Yeah, there he is. We've got him here. There's actually a bit of damage on the rear end of his car.
Noah Tara and Boak are about to come across him, and he's going a lot slower than them.
Yeah, can Coulston get off the racing line quickly? Because here comes the angry pack. Yet he's got no brakes. He's gone straight on. He's just got to stay off to the left. Thank goodness he's managed to stay off to the left there. He saw him coming.
Yeah, he just stopped to go into the pits. That's well done from Coulston there. Heads up driving.
Yeah, I saw the smoke trails and I thought knew he wasn't going to stop. Here goes Boak down the inside. Noah just leaves him just enough space at the source and down the inside, but goes deep enough under brakes. He's defending for his life, and he's really got his elbows out. Noah Tara. He's inside the top 10 now, so he's got something to fight for here.
Phil Boak is going to be having words to Tara later on, I think, because Tara, his defending is very borderline. It's some would consider it
I would say it's beyond
rude
borderline.
and illegal. Yeah.
Well, let's watch it here. Yeah. Well, he's driving straight down the middle of the road. Oh, that's borderline there.
No, that's naughty. That's a black and white flag there. That's blocking. And at this stage of the race, when it's clear that Boak is the faster car, all he's doing is slowing down both of them. He's not playing the smart strategy here. He's playing selfish.
Here we go. He's realised it now. He's realised that he moved over on Phil at the top of Lecom, and he's let him through. But yeah, you're right there, gents. That's look, I think down the front straight towards the first hairpin was fair. There was enough room on the inside there, but the second one at the top of Laycom was probably a little bit naughty, and I think he's realised that the game's up and he's let Phil Boat go.
And the thing with that is, it's what they call it. It's the reactionary move. So it's fine to move across to the inside to make that first block, but it's when you're watching the guy in the mirrors and responding to his movements and blocking as a reaction. So I think that was what
you can describe it as the Max Verstappen rule. We don't
yeah,
mind.
and that too. Just while that's all been happening, at the head of the field, Bolger's actually gotten past the other Tara and Greg Tara, and
Tara's having a look at him now down the outside at the bus stop. Look at this, and he's out there on the marbles, so he's not going to be able to pull that move off. But that's a nice little battle there occurring between 4th and 5th place. So Bolger's managed to find position on Greg Tara, as you called it there, Michael. But Tara not giving up the ghost very easily. But meanwhile, head of the field.
Mistake somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, head of the field, Foley's closed right in, and Devonish has started to reel the pair of them in as well. So this first place battle, with only 10 minutes gone in this race, is already starting to heat up. Foley with a great run out of Radion, and he's got the slipstream.
Certainly going fast, unless Wedding's geared his car much better.
Well, I think in fact that is the case. That yeah, it punches a big hole in the air, but it's got a lot of power, and that's something that's true to the real-life form as well. That Nismo engine got a lot of power behind it, and it does just pull away down the Camel Straight. So these three different marks, 3 different engine types, they're all strong in different areas, and it's interesting to see them all sort of come together at the front of the field so very quickly.
Yeah. I want you to check out the rear wing angle on these 3 cars, gents. Have a look at Lewis Wedding's rear wing compared to Foley's, compared to Devonish's, and just see the difference in the wing angle. Lewis's car's very, very flat. Foley's definitely got a lot more angle, and then behind them, Devonish has got a lot less angle than Foley as well. So maybe this lends weight to what we were saying earlier on, that Foley seems to be pretty good and pretty handy through this part of the course where they are now, but his Viper, while it's got a lot more power, is not really making a huge impression down that first sector of the lap, the Kemmel Straight. He's really relying on the slipstream to stay close to Lewis.
So Coops is in the pit lane and unfortunately missing a wheel. So he's come a cropper somewhere.
Yeah,
Sorry for interrupting. While you were telling us that, Devonish got all 4 wheels off at Stavilo sideways and managed to just clear the tyre barriers.
He's actually got a lot of front-end damage there as Coops. Not just the wheel missing, but a lot of front-end damage. We haven't been able to pick it up on the replay as to what on earth has gone on there. And to make matters even worse, he missed his pit box. So he's now in. Actually, he's gone a lot further. Now, the rule that we've had in a long time in ARW land is that if you're missing a wheel, then you're effectively out. And I think because he's probably in the pit box and he's missing a wheel, he's not going to see the checkered flag here. The game will not replace that wheel.
No. It looks like he's actually gone off. I've just got to the replay. He's hit that same tyre, basically done almost the same thing that Devonish did. In the same spot, except he's hit that tyre barrier a lot harder.
Was that up at the top of at Radion?
Stavlo.
Because it wasn't. I think probably Ozrob here, because Ozrob went off at the top on the opening lap. Devonish is still tucked in behind Foley and Wedding at the moment, so I don't think it's Devonish he's probably referring to here. It might be possibly Ozrob at the top of the hill. Just looking a bit further afield here, not only just in this 3-car battle, but Steve Boulder's managed to stretch away a little bit now from Greg Tara. Turmo's having
Devonish is off. Devonish is off. Sorry to interrupt you. Devonish is off from 3rd position. He's gone wide at Lacombe at the very top of the hill.
He surrendered 3rd to Steve. Oh, and that's a little bit dangerous on the rejoin as well, because Tara was coming at a vast rate of knots. I was just about to mention Turmo had been having a really, really great start to this race. He's up to P6 and Josh Ben to P7. Let's pick up what happened to Devonish. So, up through Eau Rouge and Radion. Now, our replay for tonight's going back to about 50 seconds prior to the incident, which is a little bit longer than usual. That's because it was set that way from duties as race director in the ARW 3 hour. So, what happened to Devonish? It looks like he managed to get through Laycom chicane okay. Oh, had a tank slapper out of the second part of Laycom, stayed out of the wall, but did it all on his own. So just got a little bit too happy on the loud pedal and then Steve Bolger went through, and then Devonish didn't realise that Greg Tara was bearing down on him very, very quickly.
And Tara's just gone off as well at Stavlo. They were just side by side with Will Devonish because Tara had a similar little tank slapper and he just hit the wall as well. It's just too much to go on.
So that's the third person to hit the wall. So Coops, that's where Coops hit the wall back there.
So just
where Tara just hit, and that's where Devonish almost hit earlier. So that's it was that was where Coops lost his wheel.
So that's not a spot we were expecting there to be so much action as well.
It's one of those places where there's really one line, and if you don't get the apex of that corner, you have to back out of it so much, because not only are there the marbles on the outside, but the road actually falls away. It's a bit of a negative camber. So if you get on the inside, the curve there really helps you through that corner, but if you're on the outside, the road falls away, and that tire barrier is really, really close. So it doesn't surprise me that a few people are getting caught out of that at that early stage of the race.
Behind Greg Tara, you can see on screen, Josh Benz managed to get a move done on Turmo somewhere on the last lap as well, because they were the other way around at this point in time on the track about 2.5 minutes ago. So Josh Benz had a good start from P8 to P6, and he's flashing the lights here. I don't know what that's all about. Look at the closing speed of the Camaro onto the back of Josh Ben, but Turmo rolls out of it, and he had a lot of closing speed to repass there if he wanted to, but elects not to from this point in time. Powerful bit of slipstream up the Kemmel Straight. Now, I'm wondering if Josh seems to think that maybe Greg Tara ahead of him is lap traffic, because there's his car and Noah Tara's car, very, very similar liveries. But unfortunately for him, the car ahead is for position.
Yeah, both of them running the Manti Grello, which is very, very famous in the VLN series, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but that's basically endurance races on the Nordschleife. So 24 hours of the Nürburgring as Tara just takes the wheel off of P1 and gets a little out of shape. If you talk Porsche fan and talking Manti, the Grello colours are very, very famous, and it's kind of cool to see that livery paid homage to here with the two Tara cars.
Yeah, just reverse image of each other. So you can see here Tara with the darker green on majority of the outside of the car, and the lighter green on the inside parts, whereas his son Noah and the number 19 is the other way around. So that's the real way to distinguish the two cars from the Lone Wolf and Cubs racing team. And Tara's fallen from the front row of the grid all the way down to P5. So what's he doing at the moment? So his lap times are in the 2:24s. So that's quite with the best lap of a 2:19. So is he nursing a little bit of damage there, or what's going on?
Remember, last lap was the lap that he went off at Stavlo, so that would include that third sector. We'll wait for a more representative lap time.
We'll get a read on it. Here we go. 2:20. So that's back sort of in the realms of the leaders. So to give you an indication, race leader Wedding at 2:20.5, Foley at 2:20.5, Bolger and Devonish mid 2:19s, and Tara with a 2:20.2. So, and even Josh Ben behind a 2:19.7. So a couple of drivers behind
Foley's
the leaders.
going for a run on Wedding here. Oh no, Foley's he's saving fuel here.
Yeah.
He's intentionally not passing Wedding here
100%.
To be able to go further, because he let out the throttle halfway down the Kemmel Straight.
Well, we've seen this happen time and time again with Lewis Wedding, do exactly the same thing. Sit behind these cars in multiple races, roll out of the throttle, save as much fuel as he can. Now he's having it done to him. How does he react to this, Bagzy?
Angrily, presumably.
Michael.
So I made mention of this just before we got started. This is actually very, very helpful to Foley because of the amount of wing that he's running. Because he's got that much of an angle of attack, it's actually going to reduce his fuel economy. So by sitting in the slipstream there, he's actually gaining that back by just sitting in the hole that the Nismo's punching in the air for him. And through the curvy bits at sector 2, he's able to keep up without any sort of problems at all because he has that extra downforce. So this is actually some very, very smart driving from Foley, and we'll see when the pit stops come, which should be in around 10 minutes, whether or not he's got the reduced fuel to take on board that might give him the jump in the pit stop.
You know what's concerning for them, though, is Bolger is closing in on them. Last lap, he was a second faster than both of them, so this twosome could become a threesome again soon, and we saw what happened to Devonish last time, but he's also closing in. Both Devonish and Bolger are running faster than Wedding and Foley. In fact, Josh Ben down in 6th is also running faster.
Yeah, I just alluded to that on the previous lap, that they were starting to punch in a couple of times or a little bit quicker. Bolger about a tenth or two quicker than the lead pair on this lap alone. We'll get a read on them as they come across the line. So Wedding 220.2, Foley 220.7, Bolger 219.4, Devonish 218.8, quickest lap of the race, if you don't mind. Then back to Greg Tara, who comes across the line now, 219.7 that time around. Josh Ben 221, and Turmo 220.8. So a little bit of a tardy lap from Josh Ben there, but it's interesting just to see that these drivers a little bit further down the order, running solo, I should say, not running with another car or using the slipstream effect of another car, running quicker than the race leaders at the minute. And it will be interesting to see, as you just alluded to, Bagzy, how this pit stop strategy will pan out for the likes of a Lewis Wedding, a Brenton Foley, that are going to have maybe a slightly shorter fill. If they mirror each other and come in, that means come into the pits at exactly the same time. Who's going to get out first? Who's going to take a different strategy? Are the likes of Steve Bolger going to come along with them? Is somebody going to actually stay out and try and get the benefit of an overcut?
Who knows? We're up in the air still. But you think that you want to be able to make sure that you're going to make it on 2 stops. You don't want to go too early in the attempt to undercut someone and then end up running out of fuel on the last lap or having to do a splash and dash, because that's just useless for your strategy.
Couple of good,
but it's all about who's going to go first.
A couple of good sector times being said there on on this lap as well. Not only Lewis Wedding, but also Phil Boak down in position 9, very, very good through sector 1 as well. What's he got there? A 35.8 in race trim through the first sector, and Wedding just up to the second sector point of 103.3. So we're keeping an eye on those guys. Is Wedding reacting to what's happening with the advances of the likes of Devonish and Steve Bolger that are really putting on the pressure at the minute to start to try and join this little train that Foley and Wedding have had for the last 9 laps essentially, including this, or 10th include this one.
Yeah, to me it looks like Foley is just sitting pretty. He probably has the pace to pass Wedding, who's now trying to break the toe down the main straight. To me, it looks like if Foley wanted to pass Wedding, he could, but he's just content to sit there. And even though the likes of Steve Bolger are very much on the tail now, it's only about a second between Foley and Bolger as they come onto the up towards Eau Rouge to start this lap 9 of this race. I think he's just content to sit there and just use the slipstream and just let Lewis Wedding pace him around for this first stint.
PB's coming in for Greg Tara and for Phil Boak that time around. So Tara 219.7. Boak's hot lap turned out to be a 219.5. So a little bit, still a fair way off actually of Devonish's 218.8. Quickest lap of the race just set a lap ago. But Steve Bolger's really started to hone in on the back of Brenton Foley now. This gap is really close. Drive-through penalty for Lime Mitch. Now I think he's just maybe one of our first ones potentially. No, actually no, it'll be a track violation. He's out on track. He's just left Blanchimont down to the bus stop chicane. So that'll be track violations for Lime Mitch, our first victim.
Burnouts in the final corner.
They're probably very upset with himself, I'd imagine, for running wide there at Blanchimont. Very easy to do in these cars. As you see, Wedding, Foley, or both Wedding and Foley. I was about to say Steve Bolger, but he kept it on the black stuff. Wedding and Foley both going a little bit wide and Puon. But Steve Bolger's now latched on to the back of Brenton Foley. He'll get a nice little slipstream from Foley, who in turn will get a slipstream from Wedding out of Stavelot if they're close enough, all the way up to the bus stop chicane. Devonish is about 2.5 seconds adrift of the rear bumper of Steve Bolger at the moment. He's coming.
Devonish is the fastest car on track still. So last time around he set a 219.2, whereas Bolger was a 219.5, and the top two were in the 220s. So Devonish is still the fastest guy on track, and all 4 of these guys are slowly coming back together.
Lights are on for the 4 leaders actually in shot there. Wedding, Foley, Bolger, Devonish closing in as well. We saw Greg Tara still in back a shot. He's even quicker than these guys at the moment. So the excitement levels are starting to rise here in the commentary box, because look at this. The top 6, there's a little bit of a moment for Josh Ben out of the final corner. They're all in the same shot. And I think Turmo may have just ducked into the pits, and yes, he has. So he's decided it's actually a little bit early. 25 or 24 minutes into this race he's coming in. So is he trying to go maybe for an undercut here? Phil Boak's going to come around and take 8th place away, recovering from getting, I guess, sandwiched a little bit at the opening stanza of this race. So Turmo, the first real one to blink out of the top 10.
Tyres as well, so indicates he's going to try that undercut.
And we've lost Lime Mitch as well now. So Lime Mitch, obviously track violations. Coops with accident damage, and Rhodey, well, who the hell knows what happened to him, but he went out on lap 1.
Yeah, so just on Turmo's early pit stop, from my experience watching GT racing, they actually mandate a maximum stint length time in a lot of the blank pane SRO officiated events at 65 minutes. But before they were doing that, you could get a GT car, and in some other GT races, you can do about 70 to 73 minutes on a tank of fuel, maybe a bit lower at Spa-Francorchamps just because of the full throttle time. So we're running 2 times fuel and 2 times tire wear in this series. So that puts it at about the 35-minute mark as to the maximum time you could run a stint. So with this early stop for Turmo, that leaves about 70 or 66, 67 minutes to run. So that should still be enough to get home on one stop, but I'll keep a close eye on it as the race develops, just to make sure that he can get to the end of one stop, because he's going to be running it mighty fine.
Lewis has put the hammer down now out here in front. She's just stretched away to a 1.2 second advantage. Will Devenish has now managed to get onto the back of Steve Bolger, and Brenton Foley's just caught a little bit in no man's land here. He's not really got a slipstream from the car in front, but he's not really giving one to the car behind either. And Greg Turris just like Devon's having a look down the inside of Steve Bolger, and he wasn't far enough alongside, but he was close enough to worry Steve Bolger from out there, who left a bit of space, ran a little bit deep into the bus stop chicane. Devonish now will look to the outside, and now looks to the inside, so trying the old switcheroo, and now he's got, he's commanded a little bit of space on the inside of turn 1, and easy pass, job done, up to P3.
Or maybe not quite. Oh, yeah, he's got a much better run. Sometimes there you can actually do the switcheroo on the switcheroo. So allow the car that's passing to go a bit deep and then take the narrow line out towards Eau Rouge. But Bolger not quite up to that and doesn't quite hold that position.
He's got the slipstream though, and he's closing in. He's about 5 k's an hour faster down the straight at the moment. See how he goes. He pulls out and he's still got that speed. So he should be able to get this pass done.
Yeah, job done. Well done. Good repass from Steve Bolger as well. Used a little bit more curb on the second part of Lacom there on the exit of the right hand up, and actually kicks up a little bit of dust, much the same as Foley just ahead of him did. Devonish having a little sneaky look down here into the hairpin. In actual fact, worried Bolger out of it for a little bit. Went a bit wide at the start of the corner, managed to gather it up halfway through. And this battle for third place really starting to heat up now. I did say that Lewis had turned the wick up a little bit, because he had done a 2:19.4 the last time around. Foley a 2:20.2. In actual fact, the lap before that, which was lap 10, Foley had actually registered a track violation, so he didn't set a lap time at all. So he's already chalked up 1 out of his allowable 4 track cuts.
So Devonish just ran a little wide on the entry to corner there and lost a little bit of time. But what this battle is doing, it's allowing Wedding and Foley to just skip away again. Foley, in fact, the fastest first sector of the race at 35.8. So as Bolger and Devonish have engaged in their little squabble, the two ahead of them have jumped away to 2.5 and 3 seconds ahead of the battle for third.
He needs this toe, though. This is the problem for Foley. With Wedding out to about a second advantage, he needs to be slightly inside of a second to really get any meaningful toe from the Nissan ahead. Otherwise, as we said, he's just caught in this no man's land where he really can't make any use of it. Devonish has had an issue
somewhere. He's dropped back 2 seconds from Bolger.
Yeah, he has had a bit of a moment somewhere on the circuit, and we'll see if we can pick up what exactly happened to Will. Whatever it was, it looks like it might have been down at Stavelo, I'd imagine. So here it is on screen. All seems okay here. And then he gets to Stavelo and a bit wide of the apex. And
It was a slow middle
just
sector.
a slow middle sector.
For Devonish.
Yeah, so maybe just missed
that-
a gear shift or something, but yeah, a little bit unusual for Will there.
I think he was wide on the entry to pull on there, so lost good bit of momentum as he actually runs a little bit off the track at the top of Radion as well. So maybe dropped out of the rhythm there for Will. So maybe just needs a lap or two to just get back in the rhythm of the track and get back onto the back of Steve Bolger.
Brendan Ross has just pit as well, so it's the second person to blink after Turmo. We'll see where he comes out in relation to Turmo, because Turmo is coming through to the bus stop now.
Good result for Brendan Ross to start this race. He actually started out of 13th place, and he was actually up as high as 9th at one point as well. So recovery driving, keeping his nose clean and out of trouble. Here comes Turmo. As you said, Bags, he's going to slip past Brendan Ross while he's still just leaving the lane now. So no position gained for Brendan Ross out of the pits. He actually will fall in behind Turmo. He'll come back onto the road 11th, but there are a number of cars ahead of this pair that will end up behind them, no doubt, such as the likes of Noah Tara, that when they come to take their first service, they'll resume the places that they were in.
And Turmo was engaged in a pretty hectic battle with Josh Ben, I think it was. Was it Ben or Boke?
Yeah, it was Ben that he was behind for quite a little portion of the early race. Now, Josh Ben, if we pick him up here, he is 6th place at the moment, and he's now behind Greg Turret to the tune of 2.7 seconds, but he's actually ahead of his stablemate Phil Boke in the sister team Vodafone car by quite considerable distance. So given they both have to stop, he's going to be mighty pleased in that car at the moment that he'll be able to come
Bolger in the
ahead.
pits, 3rd place and 4th
And
place
Devonish.
Devonish in the pits. The first two have continued around.
All right, and Glenn Miles has come in as well. He's the first of the cars that's about to be lapped, or has now gone a lap down to the race leader. And a number of cars coming in behind. Looks like Josh Ben has come in as well, because Greg Tara has gone through, and indeed the PBF Trackstar car is in as well. So all starting to kick off here. Here comes Phil Boke as well. So they're all getting to the hour mark, and they're all pulling the trigger. The question's going to be, how does this pair react? Oh, Foley's had a really good run on Wedding in the last lap or so. Got a good run out of Eau Rouge and Radion. He's not. I bet you he's not going to do anything with it though. He's just going to sit there.
He's already lifted off. He's lifted off well before the 200 board. So he's very content to just sit there and hang out while the rest of the race is just happening around him. Just quickly on, I think it was who was it? Phil Boke's entry to the pit lane, crossed up, wheels locked, almost made contact with the concrete wall on the inside as he hit the speed limiter there. So maybe we'll see a little notice from race control once Phil exits the pit.
Josh Ben didn't take tyres, and he is now ahead of Devonish and Bolger.
That's a bold move. That's a very bold move if that's true for Josh Ben. He's been looking pretty handy around here. I think he's come out, as you said, mainly from a track position point of view. He's just making sure he probably covered off Turmo, because Turmo is just coming down out of the first hairpin now, and Josh Ben already well ahead and onto the Kemmel Straight. So maybe that's a positional gain. He realised maybe Turmo's a little bit quicker, but that's an extremely bold move around here. Is he going to make the tyres last?
He should be able to make him last, but he'll be very borderline at the end of the stint. He might have to go a little bit earlier, and he'll definitely have to take new tyres.
Foley's made a mistake somewhere on this lap as well, because he's dropped well away from Lewis Wedding. Now,
He might have been editing his pit settings.
maybe. Question for you here, Michael. Does he mirror what Lewis does, or does he do his own thing?
I think if you're... I think you have to do the same as what the leader does.
Well,
so...
Lewis is in, and Foley's going through.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, that was... To explain that, if you've got the free air now, if you've saved the tyres, if you've got tyres beneath you, now is the time to use it. He's got a pretty decent amount of free track ahead of him with one or two cars just in the pits now.
Yeah.
So he'll get out ahead of those. And the next car on track ahead of him is already through Sector 2. So if you've got the tyres underneath you now is when you start cutting those laps and ruining those tyres. Just a quick note as well, in that pit sequence, Devonish has actually passed Bolger as that group comes up behind Brian Walsh in the pink Playboy Ferrari to put a lap on him. Sorry, Glenn Miles, not Brian Walsh. and Devonish is actually going to make a move on Josh Ben here as they go around towards Blanchimont. Not quite. He slips back in behind.
Osrob just ahead of this pair as well, yet to take service in the other sister JP Simshed Porsche as well. Here goes Devonish down the inside of the bus stop chicane on the right-hander, and leaving him some space as well. Josh Ben, good driving. Steve Bowl just trying to buy into this as well. So this is just the worn tyres versus the newer tyre performance at the moment. Josh Ben's going to be a passenger for a little bit here. Bolger's going to look to the outside here at La Source. Goes the long way round, gets the job done.
Yeah.
Good driving, well done.
Josh Ben's going to be ruining that decision because he's just realised how good new tyres are, and he's got to go a whole half hour or probably 25 minutes on tyres that are going to be getting very, very second-hand.
Turnout will be closing in on him very, very quickly as well by the time that that stint is over, actually well before the stint is over. Returning to the head of the field, Foley coming through the Stavelot at the moment. Oh, very, very wide as well. And
Paul just having a look at Devonish. Sorry to interrupt. For third place.
Been squeezed a little bit there on the inside, but I think he was...
Devonish had the room there. He was the one in front, so he had the ability to close the door. But all in all, these guys have still lost more time to Lewis Wedding. That gap now between this battle for third and Lewis Wedding after the pit stops, now 8 seconds. Definitely wasn't 8 seconds before the pit stops.
No, definitely not. It was a little bit closer than that.
Yeah. Also, Brendan Ross is now right on the back of Greg Tara after the
race leaders in.
They both did take tyres as Foley comes into the pits, but
lost a little bit of his on the dive planes. He grubbed the wall as well on the entry to the pit lane. One of the right-hand dive plane went flying as he came in there. So now that's going to be interesting because if he hasn't realised that, the game may actually register that he has damage, and it may go and try and repair it. So he's going to be very careful here, Foley, that he doesn't lose too much time in the pits because of that rub of the wall.
To be honest, I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem because that 8-second window between Wedding and Devonish is a pretty decent window to drop out in. And if he's still content to sit behind Wedding, then he can just slot back in, do his laps, and just, save fuel because he's already eked out an extra lap over Wedding, which is another 2 minutes. And it's 2 extra laps over Bolger, Devonish, Ben, and Boak. So it's pretty decent, and especially for running a high downforce setup, that's not too shabby, I don't think. But he is just being passed by Lewis Wedding right now.
Yeah, he's still stationary in the lane too, Foley. He's just leaving now. He's going to potentially lose a spot here to Devonish. Maybe Bolger, just depending on where he feeds out into this traffic. This is going to be very, very close for Brenton Foley. He's going to be under immediate pressure. Well, not quite immediate pressure, but
he's got just that bit more.
Just enough, but he's lost a lot of time to Lewis Wedding as well.
Wedding has bossed that pit stop. I wonder if Wedding took a little bit less fuel for this middle stint potentially.
Just going to show the pace of the Viper. Phil Boak there, 2:18.689. So the Vipers have got pace, but at the moment it's the opposite car, the 015, that's showing the way in terms of how quick it can be. Not this man, the number 074 of Brenton Foley. I thought that Devonish and Bolger would have been a little bit closer to Foley just off that exit of the pits there, but that little bit of a scrap with Josh Ben has possibly cost them a little bit of time, maybe the opportunity to get in front of the Viper after those first round of stops. But the one thing that has come about here is the margin between Wedding and Foley is now at 8.5 seconds, and it was about a second when the pit stops first occurred. So maybe that a little bit of a costly exercise for Foley, not mimicking what the race leader did when he came in Lewis Wedding.
And on that note of the race leader, brand new purple first sector, 35.8. So pedal to the metal for Lewis Wedding, now in a bit of clear space and free from the pressure of having Foley directly on the bumper. He goes on, follows on and sets the purple
middle sector. 102 dead as well in a middle sector. That is a very, very handy middle sector for race pace. So equating to grab...
a whole second faster than Foley's middle sector.
By a long, long way too. Well, Foley's obviously on cold tyres as well, so they're still pressurised. He's still coming up to temp.
Geez, Wedding's sector was 8 tenths faster than his previous middle sector.
what's this lap time going to be? Any hazards of a guess? Well, the current PB is a 2:18.690, which is
This
belongs
could
to
be
Phil
in the
Bogue.
17s.
It's a
It is
17.3.
holy.
That is very, very quick, and he's now really throwing down this challenge to
That is
the guys behind.
1.3 seconds faster than the previous fastest lap. That is unbelievable.
Foley's
Also,
closely
just
matched
if
him.
you're wondering about that gap between Foley and Wedding, there was on their in laps an extra, or sorry, rather their out laps, an extra 5 seconds for Foley's lap compared to them.
Wow.
So a real costly mistake in terms of not being able to do what Wedding did at the beginning of the pit stop sequence and go with him. That trying to go for the overcut has really cost him in a big way.
And that gap now is basically the entire length of the Kemmel Straight, so that's a pretty big gap.
Sorry, just watching Mike Coulston on screen for a minute there. Had a bit of a moment through the campus S and actually walloped the inside wall, the left-hand wall, which is a bit unusual. He's having all sorts of dramas at the moment there, Mike Coulston. Big dent in the left-hand door of that car as well.
He did have to. He came in lap 3 because he had a bit of damage and took new tyres, and then he only made it to lap 15, so not much further than anyone else. So he's essentially on the same strategy as everyone else now, but with a shorter final stop and in 12th. So if he keeps it together, he might be able to close in on Ozrob and Noatara, but that's probably 10th is as good as he's probably going to get today.
Just looking at the bodywork on that car as well, I'm not sure if some of it's by design or if some of it's just from having more hits than a one-hit wonder, but it certainly looks a little bit second-rate at the moment and missing a few small parts of the car after that collision with the left-hand wall exit on the exit of the Campus S. But at the moment he holds down 12th place, the leader in a Silver Cup. The class leader in Silver Cup at the moment is Termo, who's currently inside the top 10 in P7, so stays where he is. He'll be the leading Silver Cup runner by the time the race is over. It's still a long, long way to go. We're getting close to half distance now, gents, and Wedding at the moment has got the healthy advantage, but the real battle at the moment is this one for second, third, and fourth, because that's between Foley, Devonish and Bolger. It'll be interesting to see how that closes on, because Foley's last lap, a 2:22.16.
Remember, that was his outlap, though.
Which was his outlap, so 2:17.5. That's a PB for him. 2:18.3 and a 2:18.6 for the two behind. So
that's a great response from Foley, because Wedding had a much slower lap in response, a 2:19.3 from Wedding. So everything that Wedding just gained with that fastest lap, he's gone ahead and lost the next lap back. So this is a beautiful little ebb and flow that we got here between the two drivers ahead of the field, and then the battle for third just behind them as well.
I'll be honest, I think that fast lap for Wedding was more a point of pride than anything else, because he's letting off about 100 metres earlier than he needs to on this lap and the last lap. So he's just immediately recognised it's fuel-saving time.
Yep.
I can just secure this race now by having a much shorter final stop.
This is the Wedding speciality that we've seen time and time again, the ability to make pace and save fuel. And he'll know that he'll be quite happy to let Foley close in on the back of him, because he already knows what Foley's strategy's been for the first half of this race, and that's just to sit behind, save fuel, and he's probably playing a similar game as well. So now it's the time of Wedding to know, you know what, even if Foley's going to catch up to the back of me, I can make a little bit of time and save a bit of fuel now, and that way the impact of Foley sitting behind me is not so great when it comes to the second round of stops.
How good is GT racing, though? Love it. This is exactly why I love it as well. We're here scratching our heads trying to figure out what everyone's doing, what the numbers are, what everyone's plans are going to be. But at the end of the day, it could just be end up as a straight dogfight between the two, or even between the top 3 or 4, with Devonish and Bolger literally right behind the Viper of Brendan Foley at this stage. So, man, how good is GT racing?
These two were knocking on the door for plenty of podiums last season, Devonish and Steve Bolger. A couple of issues that went different directions across the course of the season. Devonish actually had a number of dropouts from some of the races, and just before the race tonight, he did mention to me that we suspected on the broadcast that a number of those were internet related, but they were actually computer related.
I think Bulger's just hit the inside wall at the source.
He dropped a fair bit back from Devonish, you're right, so it doesn't look like there's any noticeable damage on the front corner of that car, so...
Yeah, he's just... Look at the replay, he's just turned in and smacked the wall.
So,
yeah, well, how about that?
So we'll pick it up. You can see the gap here as they come down to the final chicane. That's this on the previous lap. And we'll actually take a little bit of an onboard, if we can, from the roof cam of Steve Bolger, and you'll see how bad the actual hit was. Oh yeah, you're right too. He really got hung up on that inside wall there. So very, very low impact. That's why we can't really see the damage. But in the actual fact, he's started to close back up to the back of Will again anyway. So it hasn't hurt him too much, whatever it is. But he may have a little bit of bent steering, perhaps, from that impact with the wall. We'll keep an eye on that.
Probably wouldn't be anything. It looked to be more around the B pillar, which is possible. And because of the way that the corner's cambered there, it kind of drags you in. It's kind of like the corkscrew at Laguna Seca.
Oh, sorry. I was just having a heart in the mouth moment there. Brian Walsh was on the grass, just letting Devonish and Bolger go past, and very nearly rejoined into the side of Steve Bolger and shot there. So I just had a heart in the mouth moment, but he was getting out of the way, doing the right thing, but just needed to keep it on the blacktop there. Sorry, Michael.
No, that's all good. Yeah, so just that camber at the first corner actually kind of pulls you in, and it can be very, very easy to make contact with the wall there. I've done it in a few sim races myself, actually. So probably, only just affected his top end speed at the top of the Kemmel Straight and nothing too much more.
Oh, Devonish gone deep at the bus stop chicane as well, and all that little advantage that he had over Steve Bolger is now gone. Bolger's got overlap as well, running down into La Source just marginally, but now he's commanded a bit of track position. Is he going to get the job done? He does. Holds his line through the hairpin as well.
Yeah, but Devonish is now one car length behind. Is going to enjoy that slipstream the whole way through. So this is almost certainly going to be a pass back for Devonish.
I'm not too sure. The Audi has looked a bit stronger in a straight line, and Devonish did not get a good exit out of La Source, and he's only just beginning to pull back that little bit of time now as they go down the Kemmel Straight. I don't quite think the Porsche Flat 6 has got the legs, and no, he can't make the move at the end of the com.
Oh, Bolger's had an issue, though. He's kept it together.
He's kept it together. He ran a little bit deep.
His gearing is not as long as Bolger's there. It was quite apparent towards the end of the straight. He was starting to hit the limiter, whereas Bolger still had a bit of legs. So looks like he's definitely sacrificed some gearing in this section here for basically being able to not be passed on the straight.
Just a quick update on the battle at the front. While Devonish and Bolger are nose to tail heading into Pouon, Wedding picked up a track cut last time around, so don't have a lap time.
Certainly did. Yeah, that would have been in Sector 2 as well. We can see where the sector's cut off, so he got through Sector 1 okay, but it possibly would have been, I'd imagine, out of Pouon. We have seen him go wide there a couple of times, and imagine that's possibly where the violations come from.
Yeah, so in response to that, Foley's put in a 17.9, and he's backed that up with the fastest first sector of the race,
35.7.
35.7. And another slow middle sector for Lewis Wedding. So he's almost inviting the pressure from Foley as they head towards Blanchimont on the 19th lap of the race. We've just crossed over half distance as well. So we're probably looking towards a 38, 39 lap race. So fingers crossed we'll get to that length. But yeah, a second slower in the middle sector. And we're just waiting on lap times as they cross the line now. But that gap is only 2.5 seconds. Remember, it was over 10 seconds when the pit stops first happened.
Well, they can see each other on the main straight. Wedding a 2:19.2 that time around. Foley 2:17.4 PB. So taking big bite-sized chunks like Jaws out of Lewis Wedding's advantage at the moment, and going to get back onto the tail very quick.
As well.
Devonish has slipped back through on Steve Bolger as well at the hairpin. So opportunistic move for Will Devonish, now back up to P3 as that battle set continues to resume on for P3 and for P4 as we just quickly run through the field on this at this half distance point. Josh Benz very, very nicely in
Turmo's in,
P5 as Turmo's come in just out of back of
he's
shot
not-
there.
That early pit stop has hurt him because
Yeah.
he's gone 10 laps on both stints. So I think that Chevy's a bit thirstier than expected. So
It is a
he's going to have a
7.2
splash of
liter.
that. Yeah.
It is a 7.2 liter. That is a problem with it. As Bolger makes the move again into Lacombe. That Audi's got a fair amount of legs on it. So that's probably helping Bolger stay in this battle. And again, another purple first sector for Brenton Foley. So even though the battling on track is pretty concentrated in that battle for third, at the moment, on the timing screens, everything is lining up.
Absolutely is. Back through the field, we've had Josh Ben just a minute ago. Greg Tara's just starting to close in on his rear tail as well. This hasn't been the race that Greg Tara was hoping for. Started on the front row, now all the way down to P6. Behind them, the second of the PBF team Vodafone cars, Phil Boak, he's back to where he started the race, having dropped all the way down towards the tail end of the field to begin the race. He's recovered quite well to P7. Brennan Ross up 5 spots. He's moved up the most spots as he promptly goes wide at Puon, but he has made up good time in the FCR Motorsport Ford GT. Noah Tara's inside the top 10. That makes both Lone Wolf and Cubs racing cars in the top 10. Ozrob, he had a bit of a horror start as well, from P6 all the way down to P10, driving a very, very lonely race at the moment. Turmo just been in for his second stop. He's P11 in the Chevy Camaro. Mike Coulston, the only flat spot racing car remaining in the race at the moment. Brian Walsh, Glenn Miles, and they're the last two classified runners with the line. Mitch
Just
Coops
to
and
go
Rhodey
fifth place,
out.
fifth, sixth, seventh are all together coming into the bus stop.
And Ben rolls out of it. Ben rolls out of it very, very early there. I wonder if that's a strategic thing. Remember, Ben didn't take tyres at the last stop, and his lap times,
His tyres are cooked.
yeah, his lap times, I'll give you the last 5 laps. 220.9, 220.4, 221.1, 21.3, 22.9, 24.2. So he's on his last legs, and he's allowed his stablemate to keep the pressure on the Greg Tara car as they head up towards Eau Rouge. Phil Boat going left, then right as they head up the hill, putting all the pressure on Greg Tara, and he's got a pretty decent run there on the exit as they sweep through onto the Kemmel Straight. He's sitting in the wheel tracks, has to go the long way around. Greg Tara holding the inside line. He can't quite get the overlap the whole way.
Doesn't have that gearing.
Yeah,
It's a big mistake to make at this track because it doesn't matter how fast you are in all the twisty bits. If you've got a car in front of you, you can't use it. If you can't get past them on the Kemmel Straight, you're floundering there, unable to get past.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you set a car up to lead, you really have to be leading, and it looks like Vipers especially are all set up to lead, to be the ones that can set the pace of the front of the field as opposed to make the passes at the head of the field. So Boak is again stuck behind a Grello coloured Porsche. Bit of a deja vu from the very beginning of the race where he was stuck behind the sister car, the Noah Tara car. Fingers crossed there's a little bit more sportsmanship paid towards the battle this time around than there was at the very beginning.
Hopefully, just having a quick look. Josh Ben's still doing quite well, but Wedding has gone and started putting in some faster laps. Last lap at 2:17.6 to Foley at 2:18.5. So he's starting to respond a little bit. Foley's set another purple first sector on this lap though. Wedding has done a 2:17.8 and Foley's done a 2:17.8. So no change at the front. About 300ths to Wedding's advantage that lap, but he seems to be responding, getting ready to just demoralise Foley by pitting and coming out another 10 seconds ahead of him for the final stint.
That would be the roughest. Absolutely brutal to get that close again and then just find that you got to make up another 10 seconds after the pit sequence. Yeah, would not be nice. But they're really just sitting there marking each other, and we're gonna get pit stops in about 7 to 10 minutes, I think, for this group of cars. So from there, we'll be on the last run to the line, and we'll get a much clearer idea of where everyone will be sitting. That battle for fifth is still raging on between Phil Boak and Greg Tara. Probably between them and the third and fourth battle of Bolger and Devonish, the two closest battles on track at the moment, as Tara's trying to break the draft to Philboat behind him. But again, yeah, with that lack of front straight line speed, Boat really doesn't have any answers to the Porsche down the Camel Straight, and that's easily the best passing opportunity on the track.
Yeah, that and into the bus stop chicane. We keep saying the two primary passing zones, they are the ones that carry the most speed and the opportunity to go under brakes if you can get an overlap.
Oh, Devonish has lost it. Devonish has lost it from fourth position in pawn. He was sideways most of the way through. I thought he was going to be able to ride it out, but the car's swapped on him, and he's lost about 7, 8, now 9 seconds on that
Avoided the
battle
wall
with
importantly.
Bolger.
Yeah, most importantly, Bagsy's right. He avoided the wall. He's come out into a gap that's still between himself and between Bolger and Tara, and the only other car that was in the zone was the pink Playboy racing car at Glen Miles. So he's come out, thankfully, into a spot where he hasn't had to worry too much about a rejoin. Let's have a look and see what happened to that on the replay, because that's a bit more unusual for Will Devonish. He's actually dropped a little bit further back from Steve Bolger and just ran a little bit wider. Maybe just Pouon's one of those corners you can't necessarily take it 100% flat. You do have to have a little confidence lift in some of these cars. Very close to taking the wall, but probably better cars width away from striking it. But that's what's happened to Will Devonish, and probably just when he went to pick up the gas, he was on the AstroTurf, and that's what's sent that car around.
Yeah, one of the difficulties with pawn is while you're trying to navigate through the tough double left-hand apex, the track's dropping away from you as well. You're all going downhill, so it's encouraging you, it's begging you to get the throttle down quicker and quicker, but as soon as you start to push it, the track falls away, and as you sort of with Will, you can just find yourself in a position where the back's going faster around the corner than the front, and all of a sudden you're facing the wrong direction.
Glenn Miles does a good job getting out of the way of this battle between Tara and Boak, continuing to rage on. Both taking a lot of curb at the top of Radion as well. So that's one of the hot spots that it can get picked up for a track violation if you go too far to the left. But so far, no one's been able to trigger that track violation.
Boak's having a go.
Boak on the outside. That's the long way around, Phil. And
I think he was just hoping to worry Taro into a mistake there.
Yeah, we've seen this time and time again. A lot of drivers will put the pressure on and try and psych out another driver ahead for a move, either down the inside or down the outside. Try and distract them and worry them out of the position. It probably, I would say, works maybe 1 in 20. That occasion was not one of those 20.
The thing is, in an endurance race, though, those you're more likely to hit that 1 in 20 because you're doing it time and time and time again. Unfortunately, it's gone the other way this time for Phil Boak. He's actually lost quite a bit of time out of Brussels and through No Name there, so he's lost out. But especially heading into Lacombe, if you can get the guy in front to make the defensive line and narrow off all those apexes, eventually one of them is going to one of those times the car in front is going to outbrake themselves and run a bit longer, and then you'll get that opportunity. So maybe in a sprint race you'd be a bit more aggressive and try and push the envelope on the inside, but in an endurance race you do have that opportunity to build the pressure, build the tension, and force a mistake from the driver in front.
Yeah, this is actually
speaking about the front, Wedding is continuing his campaign to demoralise Brenton Foley by setting lap times that are just slightly faster than Foley can do.
Yeah.
I mean, that gap's ever so slightly pulling out. It's now over 4 seconds.
Yeah, it was down to under 3 for a little bit, and he's just managed to take about a 10th here and a 10th there off of Foley. That time it was actually quite a sizable chunk. It was 7 tenths, and most of that actually came in the second and third sectors. They were pretty evenly matched through Sector 1, but 3 tenths of difference in Sector 2 and 4 tenths of difference in Sector 3. It's starting to become a little bit more of a harder mountain to climb for Brenton Foley, and he's got to get close to Wedding in the next couple of laps, because that's when the pit stop sequences are going to shake out, and he can't afford to lose the kind of distance that he did out of the pit stops for a second time, like what happened the first time around. The gap went from being a 1.5 second margin to an 8 or 9 to 10 second margin very, very quickly. He's taken a couple of tenths off Wedding this time around, but still got a lot of work to do.
We've got 32 minutes left, and by the time he gets around this lap, it'll be 31. Do you pit here, go for take the risk on where the checkered flag will fall. Just fill up here and see if you can get to the end from here, knowing that you'll have a bit of time on fresh tyres and to be able to pump in those lap times so that you don't end up being undercut like Wedding did to him previously.
I'm not
It would be a
100%
bold
sure.
strategy. It would be a bold strategy, but if he's got the fuel mileage beneath him, it's something you could possibly think of. The problem I have with that is that I don't think Foley has the fuel mileage compared to Wedding. I think
He did go longer though in the first.
he did go longer, yes, but that time
That extra lap
in
cost him.
the lane, yeah, the time spent in the pit lane filling the tank is what caused that 8-second gap. So if I was Wedding and I was behind, I'd say that would be the strategy to do. But Foley, I don't think you're going to get the gains that you'd want. Of course, on the other hand, if he sits behind and does whatever Wedding does, he's not going to get past either. So it's a matter of, if he wants to chase the win, he's only going to do it by doing something different.
I think he needs to be proactive on strategy and come in. Well, he's obviously not come in this time, but he should come in this lap because he'd definitely be able to make it to the end now, regardless of what happens. We saw him do about 33 minutes. So even if the worst case scenario where Wedding crosses the line with 1 second to go, we'll still only have about 4.5, 5 minutes of racing after that. So
Sorry, gents. Sorry to cut you off there. There's a little bit of argy-bargy between Tara and Boak. Very, very close, 5th and 6th place. Boak's having a look down the inside of Tara here at La Source, and Tuz leaves him the space. It's good driving all around, but Boak was out in the marbles on the final corner, trying to make a move at the bus stop chicane, but he's now finally got the move done out of the hairpin on the the 26th lap.
I wonder if Tara just let him through, knowing he was going to get the slipstream.
Oh, very wide.
Never mind. Mind.
That puts pay dirt to that battle very, very quickly. Tara with a big moment over the top of Radion and gathered it up on the exit. That may have triggered a track violation for Greg Tara. In actual fact, yes, it has.
Certainly have triggered
it
a
has indeed.
violation
It has
as well.
Yeah, I agree with Bagzy on that sentiment as well. And in actual fact, it has registered a track violation.
Brendan Ross is trying to pit, but I think he's run out of fuel in the pit entrance.
Oh, this is very, very troublesome. I think you're right.
There's no engine noises.
And he's gone.
No.
He's out. So that's a disaster for Brendan Ross.
No, he's still.
Is he still there? Is he still there? Yes, he is actually. Let's pick this up on the replay. Here it is. Yeah, that car is grinding to a halt. And
and there he goes.
And cuts out. Heartbreak for Brendan Ross. That is an absolute disaster with a capital D for Brendan Ross.
He was closing in on Josh Ben as well. He had a potential for a 7th place.
And he's out of this race. So
yeah, I was
Ross
having a look at Ross's lap times, and he was definitely trying to eke out a bit more fuel. Lap times in the 22s, 23s. He'd done a 29-minute first stint, which was 11 laps, and he tried to stretch it out to 13 laps on this middle stint, and he just was meters too short.
It's very unfortunate. He got 12.95 laps.
Ooh, Josh Ben's just had a moment on the entrance to Stavlo. He's made contact with the wall there.
Yeah, he's got damage. I think he's going very, very slowly. That's got front left corner damage. I think he's got problem steering.
His front tyres are gone. They're down.
Oh, maybe you're right.
Down to the rim. So he needs to pit this lap because his tyres are gone. His front tyres worse than his rear tyres. So
I'm actually surprised he's managed that
puncture there.
Well,
he really should have pit last. He's going a bit fast here to be able to make this corner very well.
He took the gamble, and the gamble hasn't paid off. And in actual fact, as we cut to the replay to see what happened, he was actually going quite slowly here. In actual fact, he got his tyres on the curb as well. And he didn't make contact with the wall, most importantly. So it looked like he had the damage, but as Bagzy just alluded to, those tyres are absolutely shot. Yeah, you can see it physically down to the rim. The question remains, has he managed to get into the pit lane? Yes, he has. Yeah. And in actual fact, behind him, Boak is in. Yeah. Now, Boak was ahead of him on the circuit as well. So behind him in the pit lane, but ahead of him on the circuit. So he will come out ahead.
Tara and Osrop going at it as well.
A bit further behind. That's 8th and 9th. And a bit of front end damage on Noah Tara's car, and he immediately comes in. So I'm not sure where that damage from Noah Tara has come from. possibly from the very, very early in the race, although we didn't pick it up. We could see it from on high. Yeah, a little bit of front-end damage on the nose of that number 19 car. Well, actually, a lot of damage, to be honest with you. That almost looks like it's hit more than one wall in different spots.
We've seen him flirting with the barriers a little bit. So Boke's actually gone quite well over all this. He hasn't lost a position because of other people pitting at the same time. His potential direct
Foley's in.
rivals, so
Foley's in. He got the gap down to 2.5 seconds. Sorry to cut you off, Bagzy, but he's got the gap down to 2.5. He's pulled the trigger and come in. So this is what you were talking about, taking this gamble.
Does he take tyres as well? Does he take tyres? Because if he doesn't take tyres, it's 10
he's
seconds
taking them.
save.
No, he's taking them. He's taking tyres. He's seen what's happened to his teammate in the PBF Trackstar car.
Bulger's in too.
And has decided that it's time to take tyres. He said there's probably no choice.
Too.
All right, so the question remains. So Wedding did a 2:17.9 last time around. Foley's best lap before that was a 2:18.1, but he did not cross the control line because of where his pit box is, so he didn't get the lap time registered. So we really didn't get a true read on what his pace was, but he has got the gap down to 2.5, and that's manageable if Wedding comes in and Wedding does a similar sort of in lap as pit stop time and an out lap, then this is going to be game on. If Foley's got to get the out lap absolutely right and he's on the move.
Tara overshot his pit box a bit, so that's going to bring Boke right back into it. Oh dear, he almost collects Glenn Miles coming out of.
No, that's Brian Walsh actually. You're right.
Sorry,
one of the
Walsh,
Playboy cars. Yeah, you're right. He's come across them. So Boke is coming down to final chicane now. Now, where's the other cars in the thing? Wedding's just leaving the pit box now. Tara's still stationary. Bulger's already left. There's Greg Tara in back of shot. Here's Phil Boke, keeping an eye on what's happening with the number 22 Lone Wolf and Cubs car, and it's still stationary. Just getting going now, I think, is it?
Nope.
He's
still stationary.
He's waiting. There he goes.
All right, Boke is through. In actual fact, Ozrob may benefit from this as well. No, he's not. Actually, he's a bit too far back. Termo's actually right on his hammer as well.
Ozrob hasn't taken his second pit stop yet either.
Well, there you go. So, Bagzy, as ever, on the mark with who's stopped and who hasn't. Greg Tara comes out P6. Has Phil Boke actually stopped for his second time, Bagzy?
Yes.
He has indeed. So, that is a net gain for Phil Boke. Where's Lewis Wedding in this? In the lane now.
So that was a 14 lap stint for Lewis Wedding. So he did an extra lap compared to his first stint. So with only 23 minutes left, he might have the luxury of not taking tyres. But I think the safe thing to do is, as the leader with Brendan Foley also taking tyres, is to just take tyres and make sure you've got everything the best you can have it as you head into the last stands of the race. Awesome in-lap from Wedding, by the way. Purple first sector and a 2 flat in the second sector as well. So he really turned the wick up.
Foley's at Stavler at the moment, and Wedding's going to be able to take less fuel as well. Wedding doing a 2-lap longer stint in the middle there than Foley. He came in a lap earlier and came the first time and came in a lap later the second time. So Wedding just seems to have got his strategy screwed on exactly how he wants it. He's not moving yet, though, as Brenton Foley comes into the bus stop. So we're going to see in the background of Wedding's pit stop here, there's Foley. He's not moving yet. Wedding has gone for a full service, I guess. He's filled that up to the brim when he probably doesn't need to. He does get to cut this first corner a fair bit, but Foley's already steaming past him.
This will be tight.
Foley's turning in at the same time as Wedding. How do they come out?
Side by side.
It's a drag race down to Eau Rouge.
Warm tyres versus cold tyres.
And Foley's got the advantage of the better run out of the final corner. So he takes the lead of this race with 22 minutes left. And it is a heads-up fight between the two.
Already looking to break the toe.
Slipstream for Wedding, though, and we know he's got the more powerful car here.
Yeah, the question's going to be is, does he go early, or is he going to sit there? Is he going to play the mind games with Foley that we've seen him do several times before and just make his move a bit later on in a race and not give Foley an opportunity to respond? Foley's middle sector on his outlap was actually pretty poor. It was a 103.3 through the middle sector compared to Lewis's 102 flat. So I thought for a minute that Foley wasn't going to get the job done before Wedding took his full service. But as you just alluded to, maybe he's gone and over-fueled the car. Maybe didn't quite get that fuel calculation done exactly right and was just stationary for a bit longer than he should have. Foley's managed, just with those warmer tyres, has just managed to get a few extra car lengths on this opening lap while Lewis gets the car fully back up to operating temperature. And Foley is just putting down the hammer as quickly as he can, but he's not able to get this gap really as far away as he like. He's got the Viper pretty much well tuned for this middle sector, but he's not making good headway. He's really not maximising it to its full potential. And this elastic gap, like I like to call it, is not really getting any bigger, and it's not really getting any smaller.
I'm gonna put the yet qualifier in there, and what I reckon's happened is I reckon Foley's done the big fuel on the first pit stop, so that way when he come in for this second stop, he's had to put in less fuel, and it's kind of snuck under the radar. Foley's first stint, it was a 35-minute stint, 14 laps. That second stint from him, 12 laps, 30 minutes. So he's been able to put in less fuel at this stop, and that's probably where he's got that lead. Now he's probably pretty heavy with fuel and on this new tire set, so he's maybe just trying to find the balance again with the full fuel load. So 20 minutes left in this race. This is going to be an absolute heads-up dogfight between these two guys. Now, if I was Wedding, I want to make that move as soon as possible. I want to have track position, because at the end of the race, track position is the most important thing, and I wouldn't want to be playing any sort of games around that, especially as the tires road in and the fuel loads start coming down.
And you definitely don't want a safety car to come out as well.
No.
To have the race end under safety car and have that cost you there. I think the biggest thing about this is that everyone in this race doesn't have pit engineers. They don't have, they look like Mike Coulson going slow on the side, letting leaders through. They don't have pit engineers. They have to do all these calculations in their head as they're racing, which is very difficult to do. We've seen in the ARW Championship, Heath Dixon crash while trying to do his pit calculations, cost him a championship, and almost ran off the road today in the AW 3 hour doing some calculations as well. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do when you're trying to push the limit and when you're battling for the lead.
This is essentially now turned into a 9 or 10 lap sprint finish for these guys. They're going to be going at it hammer and tongs for the remainder of this race. Meanwhile, behind them as well, Devonish and Bolger are starting to come back together again for this final step on the rostrum, not just overall, but in pro class as well. Devonish has just started to take little bite-sized chunks out of the advantage of Steve Bolger. Last time around, it was a big-sized chunk. It was actually 1.4 seconds to the advantage of Devonish in this little battle. It's now down to 1.4 between the two, and Phil Boak is managed to stretch away from Greg Turra now. He's quite safe in P5. He's got a good handy gap at the moment of around 6 seconds, and Michael's having hissy fits or an orgasm somewhere in the background with whatever he's looking at.
I'm just umming and ahhing this battle at the front. Foley sets a 101.9 middle sector. First one to go under the 102 barrier in the second sector, sorry. Immediately one-upped by Lewis Wedding, a 101. Devon, as Foley drifts it into the bus stop chicane. So that gap now half a second, and both of them are on the ragged edge of adhesion as we come to start lap number 30 of this race.
31.
Sorry, lap number 31.
2:16.8 for Wedding.
Wow.
To a 2:17.2 as well, so into the 2:16s. That's qualifying pace. Noah Turra drive-through penalty. That will, where's he on the track at the moment? That'll be actually, he's on track. He's actually just come out of Radion, so I dare say he's triggered a track violation, much the same as his father did at this point of the circuit here, running wide off to the right.
That's unfortunate because he's only got a 20-second gap back to Coulson in 11th, so that's going to bring that one very close for the final top 10 position.
That's right, so he's currently the man inside the top 10, but Coulston, as we saw before, getting out of the way of these two, but they might very well end up in P10 as a result of that track penalty for drive-through penalty for Noah Turra or Mike Coulston.
Gap at the front now 2/10. 35.4 first sector for Lewis Wedding as he was in the slipstream of the Dodge Viper, that big Nissan GTR looking like Godzilla in the background. and he is right on the tail as they head down towards Puon. Again, just 2 tenths in it between the two cars at the head of the field, and this is getting extremely tense.
It's
They're
getting
going
very,
to be
very...
coming up on a bit of traffic soon as well. We've got Brian Walsh, Noah Tara, Ozrob, and Turmo all ahead.
They're just down at Stavlo. They're just not too far up the road either. It's getting dicey in this battle. It's also getting dicey here too. Devonish has got the job done on Steve Bolger for P3 as well on this lap just gone as well. I'm not 100% sure where he got that done. Actually, we'll pick it up on replay here and just to see what happened and where Devonish got the job done. It was actually quite a fair way behind Bolger, as Noah Turre, another drive-through penalty for him, actually serving his drive-through, gets another drive-through, or... Actually, he's still out on track, yeah. He's actually still out on track, so hasn't even made it to serve that yet.
For him.
Now,
he's going to lose 11th place if he went to 12th.
Oh, that's what's happened. Just looking there, Steve Bolger got a little bit balked behind Glenn Miles. He actually probably tried to pick up a slipstream from Glenn Miles, just for the little shoot between between Lacombe and the hairpin, Bruxelles hairpin, and got balked. So that's what Devonish got through.
Lewis Wedding is pushing Foley round the corner, the first corner at the source.
Literally pushing. Last lap around at 17.27, places 17.31. So they're setting identical lap times, and as they come up onto the Kemmel Straight, you're just going to see that big Nissan in the background just drag right up to the rear diffuser of the Dodge Viper, looking menacing as all heck as we hit 15 and a half minutes to go. Look at the Godzilla in the background. He's going to have a little look, not quite.
Just a little sneaky
I'm
look.
wondering if Wedding doesn't actually have the top speed to go with Foley, and Foley's just pulled a bit of a fast one on him by being like, oh yeah, don't quite have the top speed, la-di-da, when he actually does, oh dear, they've got a back marker in front of him.
No, that was a lock-up from Foley there. Foley's already warned Brian Walsh that they're coming. And, that's extremely bad. Oh, I was about to say the traffic was being very, very kind to them, but that was very, very difficult there. Brian Walsh wanted to get out of the way as quickly as possible, and he pulled to the inside, and it very, very nearly ended up with Foley going nose into the backside of that Ferrari. That was very, very lucky. Foley had a little bit of a lock-up going into the Bruxelles hairpin, the right-hander, and just ran slightly off the apex. It wasn't enough for Wedding to sneak up the inside, but Wedding nearly ran into the back of Foley as well. So this battle is tense. This is coming back to what you guys said a little bit earlier in the night. This is a white-knuckle ride for these guys at the moment. They are fighting for every inch, every millimetre of track, every possible passing move being blocked off, every possible passing move being investigated by Lewis Wedding.
Investigating passing moves, I think we're about to see a thorough one here.
Inside, is it covered off? No, it's not. But deep enough under brakes is Foley that he called his bluff and didn't move across to cover it off, and actually holds the line for the minute. They go through again. What lap times are they doing? Wedding 2:17.6, Foley 2:17.8. So Wedding continues to show that he's the faster car here.
Devonish going on Bolger as well.
So that's changed places again. So Bolger has passed Devonish again somewhere out on circuit. So these guys have been exchanging places very, very nicely and very, very cleanly as well. So Bolger gets back ahead of Devonish after being bought by Glenn Miles on the previous two up. Back to the leaders we go.
Wedding is much,
this is
much
it.
closer
This is the move. Here he goes.
Yeah, on the inside here as they come down the Kemmel Straight, and he's already ahead before the braking zone. He's got the inside line as well.
Around the outside, Foley. There's a yellow flag ahead as well. Now? This is a real question. The yellow flag was out. Who was it? Behind them.
Ozrob.
That was Ozrob. Now, that's a very, very interesting scenario there because the yellow flag was out. Did he get the... I think Wedding got the move done. Foley tried to go with him. I think maybe Foley had to pull out of it, realising the yellow flag had came out. So nothing to be worried about there. They haven't redressed positions. Normally, if you pass under yellow flag, you get told you've got to redress the position or you do face the penalty. But at the moment, Wedding is through. Now, how does Foley respond?
His rear wing in his crash.
Back to Ozrob, and you're right, there's a rear wing missing there. Let's see if we can actually he's lost the rear wing well before that as well. So he's gone off at Les Combes with no rear wing. So somewhere a bit earlier than that, he has lost that rear wing. So that's his day in Spa, or at Spa, has gone from bad to worse.
Quite a large accident
At Eau Rouge?
at Radion.
Yeah,
Eau
there's
Rouge
damage
into
on
Radion.
there's damage on the back side of that car, on the bumper as well. So
Just
he's
redirecting back to
oh,
the front.
and again, sorry guys, just to stay with Oz Rob, he's had another moment out of Stavloat. He's hit the barrier and rotated, and he's going to have Mike Coulston and Noah Turra on him in no time. And
Foley's going around the outside in the bus stop. He's gone deep under brakes. He's on the marbles, sliding it through the exit. He's going to drop back in behind Lewis Wedding, but Lewis Wedding has missed the second apex.
Little
They make
nudge.
contact on the exit. Make a little bit of contact. Hopefully that hasn't caused any steering damage. But Foley got a massive run out of Stablo and really put Wedding to the wick. Forced him to go defensive into the bus.
Oh,
Wedding's
deep.
gone wide.
Mistake.
Wedding's gone wide. And Foley
Outfoxed
goes up the
him.
inside and takes the position.
worried him out of the
It wasn't
position.
outfoxing. It was just a mistake from Wedding. That's such a rare thing to see. It's the first time we've seen it.
Foley
this
weaving
season,
around.
and really in the last 4 or 5 races.
Foley weaving around on the front straight as well probably gave Lewis a little bit of a distraction, I would have thought. Lewis is probably thinking, where on earth are you going to go? You're going to go inside or outside, and
Well,
worried him out of
go
it.
around the outside and take the lead back again, as easy as you like. He's got the legs on that Dodge Viper, and Foley's going to dive
Straight
back
back.
on the inside to Lacombe, and he gets the done. What?
Oh, now
He's had to go off. He's had to go off.
he'll
So
have
he's
to surrender
hold
that.
on to that
He
move.
surrenders that. He does the right thing. He was in a little bit too hot there. He was just trying to pull it up, just to try and arrest the momentum of the Nissan just on the second part of Les Combes, but unfortunately he skated out the other side too much, and he put 2 wheels too far over the course and realised he was going to have to shortcut it. So he's done the right thing. He's still got just over 10 minutes to respond, but boy, is Foley responding in a big way.
Oh, this is edge of the seat sort of stuff here. Now, there's a little bit of a gap now. It's about half a second, so Foley has to try and find that aerodynamic efficiency of the Viper and suck his way back onto the rear diffuser of the Nissan. Because if he gets another run like he did out of Stavlo, he could have another shot into the bus stop, and we could go through this all over again.
Well, we go back to the third place battle. They're just about to negotiate Brian Walsh's Ferrari on the run out of No Name down to Pouon, so safely out of the way this time, Brian Walsh. This battle's not decided yet either. So 2 battles for steps on the rostrum still yet to be decided. Although Bulge is very wide at Pouon. That's going to give Devonish the opportunity to get a draw alongside, but on the wrong side for the Campus S through the first part, but on the correct side for the other side. Great driving. And they leave each other the space. Boulder's gone wide. He's through the gravel and he's perpendicular to the road now, and he manages just to avoid colliding with Brian Walsh. But I hate to say it, but Steve, that one's all on you. Devonish left you the space and just making a mistake there. But that was great driving from Devonish right around the outside at the S.
He's got to be careful. He's got Boca only 4 seconds behind him now after that mistake.
Yeah, he's just starting to move into back of shot as well as Phil Boak. On Steve Bolger. We probably won't. There he is, just out of the back of shot. So you're right. Bolger's going to be close or careful here, and now he's got Brian Walsh to negotiate all over again. But pick that up on the replay. That was a fantastic move from Devonish. Round the outside, no contact. Beautiful driving. Bolger tried to stay with it, but he just picked up the accelerator too early, and ended up just understeering off. And then he was a passenger after that.
For those World Endurance fans around the world, that move reminds me a lot of Nicolas Lapierre on Pipo Derani back in, I think it was 2016 or 2017, in the dying minutes of the LMP2 battle. It's great stuff, that move around the outside in Campus, and it's a brilliant part of the track to make a move like that because of the way that the corners sort of help you out there.
And the margin
awesome stuff.
margin is now 9.5 seconds from third to fourth as well now. So that's pretty much the move that decided the final step on the podium at this rate, barring any further trouble for Will Devonish. But great job. That's probably I would say probably one of the passing moves of the night. There's been plenty of great passing moves, but to hang around the outside there is in a very difficult part of the circuit to pass. Not a traditional passing zone, but that's a very, very nice job. Back at the front of the field, the gap was out to just over a second a few moments ago. It's now down to 8 tenths as Foley just starts to chip away just a little bit here and there at Lewis Wedding, matching each other virtually sector for sector at the moment. 35 each with a 35.7 in the first sector, each with a 102.3 in the middle sector. So this elastic gap just back and forth, just like a rubber band, and it's all going to come down to those little 1%ers who can just do that one corner a little bit better than the other. As Foley backs it in deep into turn 17 and now 18, Wedding a little bit understeery off the final corner, and now Foley really does latch onto the back of the Nissan. Found some time in that final sector.
Huge amounts of time. Purple final sector, a 31.7 plays a 39.7, sorry. So that gap has come down immeasurably in that last little sector of the last lap.
Very quickly running through the field. So these are the top two on screen here. Back to Devonish in third. Steve Bolger, as you said before, is coming under pressure from Phil Boak now. Just managing to hang on to P5 ahead of Greg Turra. Josh Ben, Termo, and then they're the only cars that are still on the lead lap. Coulston and Noah Turra inside the 10. Foley round the outside.
Going around the outside. He's got his nose ahead. He's going to have to go deep into brakes. Is he going to be able to arrest the momentum that time around? Yes, he does, and he makes that move and holds Lewis Wedding up in the middle of the corner to make that move stick. Now he's just got to hold it.
Oh, Foley with two wheels in the dirt.
And Wedding has the inside line into Brussels, but Foley swoops around the outside. He doesn't quite make the apex, though. They're going to go side by side into No Name. Can Foley hold the inside line?
Contact.
They make contact there, and they look to have both escaped, but Foley now ahead of Wedding, and whoa, tight racing there. We've got 5.5 minutes left. 5.5 more minutes of this battle at the front. It's been raging since the last pit stop. This is amazing stuff.
And that's what Foley tried to do a couple of laps ago when he tried to arrest the momentum of Wedding at the up at Lake Com, at the middle of the Com, but he was on the inside. This time he was on the outside, so he was a bit better placed. He's gone wide there at the second part of the S, and they run side by side through the first part of Stavelot, leaves him the space, and that will still compromise Foley a little bit here because Wedding's going to have a preferred line out of Stavelot. Now is he going to... Oh, he's pushing him along. You can fit a cigarette paper between these two as they run down to
GT3 is compared to the Viper. It's ridiculous.
Where's the move? Where is the next move? Foley's going to have to go super defensive, but he decides not to. Lets Wedding down the inside. Has Wedding gone too deep? Yes, he has.
Way too deep.
Way too deep. Foley made the right choice to stay on the racing line. Wedding is just committed too heavily. That's actually just given Foley a little bit of breathing space to the tune of 8/10 just for this lap here. Lap 37 now commences. Foley backs it into turn number 1. We've got probably about 3 or 4 laps left to run. Bagzy, quickly digest this before we bloody get any closer together again.
Just a quick note on the tyres. They're almost identical in terms of tyre wear. Wedding's fronts are looking a little bit better, as are his rears. Foley is flirting with track limits there.
Oh, very
not sure
close.
If that will be considered a cut or not.
We haven't a cut.
We're not sure if the game's given it a cut or not. We'll find out as they come to the first sector as to whether or not he has a time recorded. But this is the first time that
he's been given a cut for it. You're right. So this is the time of the race where if you've... I hate to say this. This is where some of the drivers can be a little bit cheeky. If you've got cuts up your sleeve, you can use them, but you might be under protest in a certain circumstance if you do it too often. So you've got to be careful here. We know that Wedding had already chalked up 1 or 2. Foley's already chalked up 1 or 2. It's it's like Mark Scaife says during the supercars. If you've got them, now's the time to use them.
Yeah, I think in that last lap around, heading from Stavelot into the bus stop, Wedding just got a little too close to the rear of Foley. He was almost stuck behind Foley, didn't get that nice slingshot run that you'd like. And so when it came to the braking zone, he was looking to try too hard to make that move there, and that's why he came unstuck. But this time around, he's got a little bit of a gap, so if he gets another monster run out of Stavelot, he might be in a better position to make a move out of Blanchemont into the bus stop. And he's got a little bit of room here, but Foley's very good on the exit there. And both
also, just
very nice
before we get to the bus stop, based on the current time, after this lap there'll be 2 laps remaining because we've been doing 2-minute 20s and we're about 10 seconds away from 2-minute 20 here.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
There's no chance of them making it to the line for an extra one.
It'll be a 39 lap race
for the inside. He doesn't. He pulls out. So we will have 2 laps to go.
All right, 2 more rounds left in the chamber for Lewis Wedding. 2 more laps to effect a pass and take not only the race win, but the second win of the season for him. This race win is actually very
Oh,
important.
we've got someone off. Philip Boak, 5th place. He's gone off very, very deep in, I think that's the exit of campus.
That's yeah, it is the exit of campus. You're absolutely right there, Floody. And he's got, I think he's got damage too. He's
huge amounts of damage.
So let's very quickly see if we can pick this up on the replay. We'll have to fast forward a little bit here as we come up to see what's happened before we come back to the battle. So he's gone through Puon okay, and then now coming down to the scene of the accident.
Wang's having a go for first place, coming down to the end of the Camel Straight.
And Boak's accident was actually all Boak's lost a bonnet too, so that's what's happened to Phil Boak. He's
got past.
And Wedding, with all that calamity while we're watching, Phil Boak has managed to get through. So Wedding has used up one of the bullets left in his chamber, so to speak, and he's got to hold off Foley for another minute and 15 seconds to get
Plus
to
1
0,
lap.
plus the 1 lap. So a lap and a half for Lewis Wedding. I was saying before Phil Boak went off, this win would actually be very, very important to Brenton Foley, because this win would be worth more points than a standard 60-minute race. It's actually 25 points for a race win in the 90-minute race as compared to the 18 points for the 60-minute race. So very important for the man in second place to get a win on the board, because it would have moved him ahead of Wedding, but it's not over and done with yet. This is the battle that we're going to stay with all the way to the checkered flag. We stayed with it for most of this latter part of the race. As you can see, the bonnet from Phil Boak there was sitting on the tyre barrier from the scene of the accident. He's now dropped all the way down to P7 as a result of that. Has Wedding got enough of a margin? Can he find that extra little bit just to stay ahead of Foley for one last lap? Timer counting down, 10 seconds remaining. It will be the final lap when they get to the line the next time around. Foley looking down the inside, just trying to think about putting the pressure on Wedding through the 18th corner for the second to last time. And
It's going to be a back marker ahead of him as well. Turmo in 8th place.
Yeah, Turmo is just ahead of him. And Foley trying to do what he did to Wedding before and trying to make him go deep into turn 1. And he does. He made him go deep again. Second time's a charm again for Foley.
Was that strategic though from Wedding? Did he just want the slipstream up the Camel Straight so that he can affect the pass?
Know.
That might have been sneaky and calculated from Wedding. We'll have to ask in the post-race interview. But here we go.
They both use the track limits to their maximum at Radion, and now it's a matter of drag race. Foley decides to stay left, so to the right. Wedding goes to the left and pulls alongside and ahead. Now what does Foley do? Does he back out of it? Yes, he does. He tries to get the preferred line through the Lacombe chicane.
One more shot for Foley.
Yeah, where's this back
That's
marker?
going to be into the bus stop.
Yeah, where's this back marker? Oh, Foley's off the road! Wow.
So the back marker is just ahead of them now. He's just going through the exit of Bruxelles as they enter it. Lewis Wedding very, very wide in the middle of Bruxelles there as they come through No Name, and it means that Foley's able to take a much better line through that corner. Now, if they run into the back of Turmo through Puon here, this could cause havoc to the top 2 as we come through to the second half of the last lap of the race.
It's about
Wedding with lights ablaze, trying to let Turmo know, get out of the way. I'm the leader. This is important. He's not really getting out the way, though. He's quite slow. He did have an incident last lap.
He's got out of the way this time now, so did very, very well there. Picked his moment, Turmo, so didn't impede them very much.
One more shot for Brenton Foley as we come into Stavilo.
Here we
He's
go.
going to have to try and make a move into bus stop.
It's all about this run out of Stavilo. And Foley uses the road and some. I don't think he's close enough at the moment. He's got a good run now. He's now starting to reel in the GTR. Through Blanchimont we go for the final time. This is it. This is where the pass has got to get done. He has to get it done here. Where does he go? Does he go left? Does he go right? He goes left. He's going to try running outside. This is a very, very deep move from Brenton Foley. Is he going to hang around the outside? Wedding escorts him all the way off the circuit. And Wedding looks like he's going to hold on here. Or is he? No, it's a drag race to the line. Is it going to be Wedding? Is it going to be Foley? It's Wedding by a nose.
Woo! What a finish to this race. Both of them running wide into the bus stop. But Wedding with the inside line takes the victory. The final margin at the end, 0.086 of a second after 90 minutes, after 39 laps. What a race from Lewis Wedding and from Brenton Foley. What an absolute spectacle of GT3 racing.
That
If we
is
can get a replay of that final corner there, Foley came so close to be able to hang it around the outside there. He probably could have been a bit more forceful, got his elbows out a bit more as Wedding tried to escort him wide, but he took the higher ground there, took the moral high ground there, I guess, and didn't initiate. It didn't initiate the contact. He's done quite well there. Devonish has come through for third.
good
Bolger
result.
comes through
Yeah,
for fourth.
good result for Steve Bolger and Lewis and for Will Devonish there, so 4th and 3rd place respectively.
5th place for Greg Turrow, which is quite good because of Boak's crash. Boak did come in and get a bit of service, so he'll still manage 7th. So after 90 minutes of racing, he's gone nowhere. He stayed 7th.
It's a Greg Turrow fell from
good job from Josh Ben's done quite well considering he had 2 front punctures at the end of his 2nd stint.
Yeah, so he's going to finish somewhat a minute and a half off the race lead here, Josh Ben. But what could have been a very, very good result if not for that, not for failing to take tyres in that particular instance. Phil Boak's going to come home.
Gets a top 10 as well for after Osrob's issues.
Phil Boak's going to come home for P7 minus a bonnet and a bit of front end damage there. You can see all the engine, all the suspension componentry on that car as well. Termo's going to be the lead Silver Cup runner. He got home for P8 and then back to actually ahead of Mike Coulston as well. And then, as you said, Noah Tara inside the 10. Osrob, Brian Walsh and Glenn Miles, they were the last classified runners. Just making sure everybody's across the line, and it looks like they are. Everybody is across the line, and that is 90 minutes of Spa. And gentlemen, we now exhale.
Woo! Oh, now we exhale. You're exactly right. What a race. What a spectacle. What a battle at the front between Lewis Wedding and Brenton Foley. Man, after the 2 races today, I don't think I need to watch any more racing for the rest of my life.
That is, it's been a very, very big endurance racing Sunday, not just here in AMSLs, but ARW as well. That was probably one of the best exhibitions of GT racing that we've seen, not just all season long, but all series long for the 2 years and the 4 seasons that we've actually been doing endurance racing. I didn't think anything could top the Greg Nangle win at Monza last time out that we did Monza in the Endurance Championship, but that is definitely some finish. It's going to take some beating, gents.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was a great race. That's up there with some of the better endurance races that I've seen, even in real racing. That was an absolute spectacle. We got some of the drivers in the booth with us now. Firstly, race winner Lewis Wedding. Oh, talk us through those last few laps, because you and Brendan Foley were absolutely hammer and tong from the last pit stop, and at the end there, it could have gone either way, couldn't it?
Yeah, it was really, it was a flip of a coin, I think. Coming out of the chicane on the penultimate lap to start the final lap, it was a flip of a coin. Who would win that race? Because you had 2 big braking zones. You had straights where I think Foley had just a slight edge. I think a K or 2, which was able to keep him in it a lot of the time, and was able to keep him ahead and keep me at bay for a little while as well. So it was that was some of the craziest racing that I've been a part of. I know obviously I've had like the last lap win at Suzuka last year and stuff like that, but I've never had exchanging positions every lap for the last 5 laps of a hour and a half race. So that was a pretty crazy race.
Yeah, how's your heart rate, by the way? Because us in the commentary box, we
It's actually not too bad. I was actually a bit less nervous than what I thought I'd be, but I think I was just concentrating on the task at hand, and thankfully it just got over the line this time.
So, were you surprised that Foley slotted out ahead of you after that last pit stop? Because that middle stint, you came out of the pits with an 8-second gap, and then all of a sudden, come the last pit stop, he was ahead. So, yeah, was that a surprise at all?
Well, when I saw his sort of driver tag sort of just flipped past me at the hairpin, I'd sort of gathered that he'd short fueled it and calculated his fuel a little bit better. I was I was oohing and ahhing before that last pit stop whether to drop fuel out of it and have a faster pit stop, or just tank it and make sure I've got something to fight with in case anything happens. And I've decided just to leave it at a full tank. I still probably had an extra probably 2 or 3 laps there at the end, but with the way Spa is, which is what you saw at the start with everybody sort of fuel saving at the front. I wasn't exactly quite sure how I'd be able to get there with the fuel, so I just decided to leave it. And he was out in front, and I knew there wasn't too much between us because when I was sort of pushing a little bit in the middle stint, I wasn't really putting much time on him. And then once obviously the slipstream was there, there was no chance of dropping him.
Well, at the end of the day, you emerged victorious. 0.086 per second. How do you rate that race? All the races that you've done.
Oh, well, I said to the other guys in the voice chat just after across the start finish line, I don't think that finish is going to get topped anytime soon. That was that's. I had a defensive race in the Porsches last year that was pretty crazy, but yeah, this takes the cake, and yeah, I don't see anything beating that, to be honest.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on your win, Lewis Wedding. Second place, Brenton Foley. Wow, what a spectacle between you and Lewis at the end there. Talk us through your perspective on that battle.
He was a lot smarter in being behind me on the straight in the last lap. I knew that's exactly where I wanted to be, but I didn't expect him to go wide at turn one. And by the time I'd kind of caught on to what he was doing, it was too late. If I had let go of the throttle, would have been way out of the draft. But I knew I had to have a go at the last corner. I could brake a tiny bit later than him, and I had to just give it a go. So I did, and yeah, you saw what happened. But I don't even have words for that. I think I was running for the last 30 minutes on pure adrenaline. I don't think I've ever been so exhausted after a race, after racing the ARW 3-hour this morning as well.
Yeah, big day of endurance racing. So was that a strategy play to take the shorter middle stint and try and pop out ahead, or is that just how it happened and it was all serendipitous and fantastic?
As you guys saw, I fuel saved a lot behind Lewis in the first stint, which really set up the rest of the race. I basically on the middle and last stints, I just balanced by tyres. As soon as I felt the tyres hit a wall and I was past my critical lap, I went in. And thankfully, I was able to do the undercut nicely and get me back kind of in the draft with Lewis. Because, as he said, we were matching each other when in that middle stint when we were separated. The gap really didn't change too much. But as soon as the draft's there, that's when all the passes happen.
Yeah. Next race is Brands Hatch. Do you feel confident heading into Brands Hatch that you might be able to get one up on?
Oh, I've never raced a proper endurance race there. I've only ever raced there in caterhams, but and maybe touring cars
And TCAC.
yeah, TCC. But looking forward to it, and I'll give it my best shot.
Fantastic. Congratulations on second place. Third place at the end of the race went to Will Devonish. Will, you had a bit of an up and down sort of race, a few little mistakes here and there, but at the end of the day, third place is a pretty solid result.
Yeah, I was a bit frustrated through that. I couldn't keep concentrated in the mid stints, and I think every stint I had a mistake, but happy to pull it home in third. I think even without the mistakes, wouldn't have been challenging for the lead, so I was happy with that result.
Yeah, fair enough. You and Bolger engaged in a pretty decent battle throughout the middle and late part of the race. You eventually making the move. What a move around the outside of the Campus S's. Talk us through that one moment of the race.
Yeah, I think you guys know that I like an opportunistic pass, and if the door's open, I'm going to be running through it, even if it's only open a little bit. But yeah, it's I think my car handled a lot better on the gravel, all on the dirty stuff than his did. So when I got past the first part of the corner, he just went wide, and I think there was a little bit of a tap, and he's lost a bit of the front end grip and he's gone on the grass, and I managed to keep it on the track. And unfortunately, he dropped 10 seconds. I think if he had stayed with me, it would have been a real ding-dong battle for third towards the end.
Yeah, as that happened, you ended up taking that third position. Now that moves you into third position in the championship as well. Do you feel confident of reeling in the top two, or is it a bit more of a wait and see what happens as we head into the next round of the series?
Well, as Rob said last race, we're going for the team championship more than drivers championship. I mean, if we're both up the pointy end of the drivers championship, that's great. But we're really in here for the team championship and just bring points home every week.
Fantastic. Congratulations on your third place. So that's the top three of the race here at Spa-Francorchamps. And Nether, I'll hand that back to you.
Thank you very much for the interviews there, Michael. Just having a look at how the point situation shakes out after the second round of 8 rounds in this GT3 World Challenge Season 2 for 2019. Wedding and Foley remain unchanged at the top of the standings. Will Devonish moves up into position number 3 by virtue of his third place tonight. Steve Bolge with a little leapfrog move as well, moves up from 7th place to 4th. With a 4th place finish in tonight's result. Mike Coulston is still the, actually just looking here, he's tied for points now in terms of the lead in Silver Cup with Termo, but it will go to Termo on a count back of best finishing position, a pair of 9ths for Mike Coulston, whereas Termo has a 10th and an 8th, so honours going to Termo there at the moment to be the leader of the Silver Cup. Balance of the top 5 as it is right, as of the top 10 as it is right now. So Wedding, Foley, Devonish, Bolger and Ozrob are the top 5. They are all pro drivers. 6th and 7th Silver Cup of Coulston and Termo, and then the remainder of the top 10 all pro drivers. Josh Ben, Phil Boak and Brendan Ross rounding out the top 10 drivers of the championship. Next race is Brands Hatch, as you said there, Michael. It's very, very fast, very, very narrow, and not also narrow, but has one of the narrowest pit lanes in the world in terms of racing. So that's going to be a very, very interesting part of the race in its own right, getting on and off pit road. And not only that, very, very undulating circuit. Bagzy, looking forward to that one?
Yes, I am. I was going to say, this is, as we said before, probably one of the best GT3 races we've had. And I'm probably going to watch this one back, at least the last half of it, because it was just a brilliant race, and well done to everyone involved.
Oh, 100%.
I think you're absolutely right, gentlemen. I think there's a number of us that, and a number of the drivers that obviously will watch the race back over the course of the week. As I said, I didn't think anything was going to top the one-lap sprint finish that we had at Monza in the previous season, but this one certainly is going to take some beating now. It's not every day that you see two drivers go hammer and tongs at it for virtually a full 90-minute duration of a race at an iconic circuit as well. It's certainly been a pleasure to see great rivalry developing between not only Lewis and Brenton, but between a number of the drivers in the field as well. We'll end proceedings there for tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks on Sunday, the 29th of September for round 3 at Brands Hatch. But my thanks to both Bagzy and to Michael the Floodman Zalavari for their comments tonight. I've been Nether, and as always, please drive safely. See you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.